How evening thing?
So, what are you looking at?
Oh, I'm just curious. That running that thing across the floor, it always comes unplugged.
Oh,
So I
does
was
it?
just wondering if we can run it up above the ceiling and bring it down the wall, and
Ooh, I like that idea.
instead of this.
I was looking at this morning when I was going from the restroom back to my office downstairs. I saw it the same kind of a long thing for the new setup, with the cord being under this. Yeah.
So
And I
why
thought,
is it still not? Good morning. Here's the packet if you want to get going on that. I'm figuring out why my camera's not working now. There it is. There we go.
Morning, Mark. Good morning. You look refreshed this morning.
Did I?
That must be more ran over than refreshed. Well, I had a vacation the last meeting. Well, that was no vacation.
how was that, by the way?
It was really interesting.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting opportunity.
Did it seem like we all talked and worked together well, trying to
Yeah, no,
work
it was
on that stuff?
a great group of folks. And
What was that?
the refuge review for sections 11 and 12 on the south end.
For the recording, it is Wednesday, August 16th, 2023 at 09:33 a.m. And county court's in session for accounts payable, bill pay, voucher pay, whatever, work session.
You name it, that's what we're doing. I just had who's going to speak to us on this?
Karen.
Karen, okay.
I've got the email chain of information somewhat on it, but I asked Karen if she would be available to come in.
Good, because I've never dealt with that on my time on the court. But
it was never dealt with in the way I'm sure we're all going to want to hear about.
Yeah.
Back when it was started, it was like this great idea, and the school district applied for it, and now it's at our level.
So you do have some background.
Not much. No,
Okay.
I'm concerned about the
Well, and that's what I asked
ability for it to
if she
pay
would
for
be able
itself.
to speak to the history of what happened, how we got to where we're at, and how we're going to rectify it.
I'm like,
It was more or less one of those things
heard
where,
about.
I think it was more or less when Mark was commissioner. He basically said, "You guys support me going to try to get funds to do this." It was more like that than a real. This is how it would roll kind of thing. So. What's happening? Excuse absence.
What's that?
I think there's no excuse absence. Always. One went. You do too.
He did go to a meeting on Monday, so he might be meeting now.
Got his quota for it.
So when does school start training next week?
21st. Mm-hmm. I think everybody pretty much is on the 21st. Just happened to kind of land right then.
So all that Highlander Day stuff is the week before they start, or
I don't know what all they do. I've kind of lost track of just the cruise activity.
This came up, but it wasn't with, I'm not sure what it went to. They didn't seem to be
of our lives.
Like sometimes they're grouping a couple things together, but
didn't really make what's been going on in your world, Barb?
Well, we were just talking about that irrigation issues. Yeah. One second. We just had a pump reset and now it's not working.
That's the story of Harney County right now. That's not where you are. We have one down at Crane too. Not we, the ranch does. So are you still operating your auction deal at this point?
I had a couple lined up for this year and neither one of them has worked out. One lady broke her neck.
Oh,
I got surgery. It'll be 3 or 4 months before she gets out of her neck brace. And the other one has so much stuff that she needs to go through first. Because I told her, you know, she had so much stuff. Oh, so and so gets this and so gets that. And I said, we don't have a sale. We take that stuff out.
You're like not getting in the middle.
Probably not going to happen. No, I'm trying to figure out what to do with that. I'm at the point where I have to make a decision of whether or not I want to re-up my license with Secretary of State.
Oh, okay. So that's who it's licensed through. It's licensed through the Secretary of State then.
Yeah.
Business.
Yeah.
Do you have to get local licensure too as well, or just?
Well, I did. I've got a license. Well, from the
City of
Burns for that building, which was kind of interesting because I don't want to be on public record. No, I have a permit.
There are no secrets in this.
Well, actually, I went in and I told them that I was out of that building December 15th of last year. The building sold.
Oh, it's. I'd seen it was up for sale, but then is it back up for sale?
Oh yeah. Joe Witzel bought it.
Oh,
and so he was the reason I had to be out by December 15th. And a month after we bought it, we put it back up for sale.
you don't know what he was thinking.
Well, I think, you know, he hasn't told me directly why, but I don't think it was entirely planned out. No, I like him, Joe. Still like to be on. Anyway, so I told the city firms that I was out of it December 15th, and they sent me on other.
Just in case.
No fees.
Okay. I'd like to start working through that portion.
Rick's with us.
incognito today.
Are you on there, Rick? Give me a sound check.
You're muted, Rick. We like you muted, Rick.
He's racing across the living room to get back to the computer and just stubbed his toe.
I think we like you better gone, Rick. This is funner. Or maybe you can elaborate on
Oregon Business Development, GO Commission on Children.
is that the lump sum we get and then
we don't get anymore. That was just old. As far as Commission on Children and Family stuff, that was stuff from back from 2011 or so that we carried on. They're in our budget, but I don't know what the SFMS, I don't Frontier, or I don't know what that is.
I just don't remember seeing it before,
I don't either.
Maybe I've just overlooked it in the past.
No, there's just still one fund for Commission on Children and Families that's been getting used up all these years that I was able to retain from back when I did that work.
So do you believe that that's maybe
that does not look familiar?
Oh.
I think we have about 4 years left of 12,500 allocations to that thing
for the project with
the Oregon Youth, the community, and I think we've only got about 4 years left of it, and it's gone. But I don't know what that amount is.
Are you familiar with what that represents? It's just something I haven't necessarily noticed before. I go grab Bobby Joe and see if she could enlighten us.
Is it a credit or a payment? This one here.
So the tax is it's the heavy equipment rental tax, and it implemented. I think this is the start of our second year. It's paid quarterly by Department of Revenue, and then
this money we receipt in. Okay, so these are all what we see on that page are all funds for receipting into the county.
Yeah, so this particular page that you're looking at is the daily activity for the LGIP, the Local Government Investment Pool at Oregon State Treasury, where I keep like the bulk of our monies. And then
on that last item though, can you read it and tell us why it's identified that way? Why it has
just the 55,000.
Yeah, read what the line is that describes what that line is.
It says Oregon Business Development /GO Commission on Children and Families.
That's what got our.
But that particular payment is actually the payment for the fairgrounds, the first installment of the biz.
Oh, but they
Oregon.
have all that other language attached.
I know. I thought that was weird too.
Okay, because I'm like 55,000. I know of 55,000, but the children and families thing, I'm like,
And I got
that's what
notification
didn't make sense.
from Lindsay that it was coming.
Yeah.
And then I got another notification, which you don't see in this paperwork, but it.
So the Biz Oregon just had a lot of other things attached to it, but it has nothing to do with
Has nothing to do with.
that was our
Commissioner
Biz Oregon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. I thought it
Kristen
was.
was asking me some questions. I was like,
Yeah, I'm like, well,
not-
children and families. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew the other was from Biz Oregon. I knew that amount, but then the other I was like,
Yeah. So
is there some other pot of
yeah.
money
So
that
that's
I
the
don't
first
understand?
payment of that shelter grant.
Yes. Yeah, then shelter grant. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
And
thank you
then-
for clarifying.
And then that hurt tax just.
So
For
it's a
your
heavy equipment.
FYI,
tax.
then that has to be deposited into the unsegregated tax fund.
Okay.
And then it gets split out to all the tax districts. And you won't see the journal entry for that until the next packet, but you know, everybody gets a little chunk.
No.
I really wish they would send this to me annually because you'll notice like
Quarterly?
some of the districts get like $1.28, 61 cents.
But you can't
I
hold on to it.
can't hold on to it. I thought about asking, like trying to call someone at Dior and saying, because our payment is so small, could you send it to just,
Well, or if it's not
annually.
over a certain amount, could we have a different, payout scheme? Yeah. That could be something though, legislatively though, they could address in a bill setting that
Okay.
unless it's over a certain amount, here's how the rules apply,
Okay.
things like that. Those are things that we can have conversations
Okay.
about
I mean, it's,
that they could work on. Because like you say, that's really awkward for a treasurer to have to divvy up dollars and cents
every quarter.
every
Yeah.
quarter.
And I mean,
Instead
and
of-
I'm not complaining, but kind of in a way I am. I mean, all of the legwork involved in that little payment.
Has to happen 4 times a year for a couple bucks for each, and then you have to cut checks. And, I mean, it adds up
It
on
just-
their end.
Yeah, it's a half day's work for that little amount, which, but I was like, oh, can't they just send this to us annually? I'm sure some of the big counties
Well,
get a
even-
nice chunk.
So is this
So
DLR?
the top one is
That's a very
goes
small
to
amount,
community
too.
corrections
Okay.
for some type of supervision fees through. Anyway, I get a little
Something,
notice for
yeah.
that.
And then the liquor tax, where does it end
That
up?
goes to general fund.
That goes to them. And it's a quarterly.
It's every
Nice.
month,
Oh,
It's
it's monthly.
Mhm.
Okay.
but it fluctuates. It's interesting on some of these taxes, how the dollar amounts fluctuate on the time of year. Like holiday time, the liquor tax goes up. It does. It's
You all are consistent.
COVID season, it goes
Yeah.
up.
Yeah,
That was embarrassing,
like-
honestly, that we're making more revenue during COVID on liquor
And
than
that-
any other time in history.
and like the
It wasn't just here, it was
Everywhere.
across the state.
during COVID, after a while, I'm just saying, how's business? She said, I went, oh, yeah.
and like the amusement tax,
Everybody's hearing it,
amusement
but I'm
device
looking out.
tax that we get, that comes quarterly, but that's for like a small tax for the lotto machines or whatever. That went up not during COVID, but like right after COVID, when everybody could like go back out, it skyrocketed. It's
Once
just
they
weird.
started traveling a little.
Mhm.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Oh, the internet.
Mine took a little bit to connect just from in there to here.
Hmm. Oh, it's good it came up, but then I must have been an old load. Great.
You're obviously. They'll have to do a restart and see if that. We just have the elevators working. Yeah, that's a good question. And they could just suck it to the city. I don't recall it happening frequently. It shouldn't. Should it? There's something that's actually occurring. And it comes under general. Two different bills. Yeah. But that ends up adding up. And it wouldn't be, that's Lincoln building too. Question. Okay. More so maybe he should be able to. We can ask Bill to look into that.
Everything is going on sale at Century today. Is there anything with how we can
That's so sad.
25% off, I think is
5%? That's all.
25.
And these elevators can be a big loss. That was serviced. It seems like we just had it done, and from what I recall, but how often are we needing to spend $5,000 on our elevators?
Do they come quarterly and do something?
No. I'll have to follow up with them again. I've had discussions with them before on the same kind of thing, and I haven't seen invoices come across for them this past month.
So is that Chad would submit those?
Well, when I first started, I got them directly. They came directly to the county court, and I processed a couple of them. And again, I called them and asked them, I got invoices. What are these for? Oh, we come out and inspect the elevator. And but that was when I first started in January. So
well, that's what I say. I swear we just paid them a sizable amount.
We did. It's about that amount again. I'll have to
I feel like we're
find the Schindler.
For little uses, any of ours get annual inspection would seem more than reasonable. Here and then in the junior high building, it's an elevator, but it's not in use. Well, thank you for following up.
I will. I've called them and talked to them before. I'll call and talk to them again.
Well, and Brad should be the one initiating said actions, as, you know, the lead maintenance person. So he's being circumvented, you know, they're not even contacting him. it's still not coming up.
And I'm not showing. I'm connected here, but I want it's on the Town Cloud website.
Think about the inspection should be something you have to call for. No, to be this for 16 days.
Well, there might be some contract. That where you're at.
Yes, it says I'm connected. Somebody. It's a maybe.
It's an embedded link. If you go to the
Yeah.
Town Cloud, go to the county court or the county webpage.
So they go to the web page and then go to agendas and minutes. And then click the agenda for today. Yep.
Yes,
Nope, that's okay.
it's easier than trying to explain.
Exactly. And then just click on agenda, and then it's just a link right here. Uh-huh. You have internet?
I don't.
I don't know.
I can't get mine to. I can already make sure.
Hey Rick, are you there?
Was Jeremy in his office?
No, he's over.
You have to go home.
Another one just to see.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Rick. Okay, so if we're talking to Rick, I'm on in work. I'm connected.
Let's do this.
Say hello again, Rick.
You're all coming in clear.
Okay, I'm turning the volume up one more time. Test 1, 2. Are you there, Rick?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, there you go. Volume gets moved on this thing all the time.
We can get started.
Okay.
Just later.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Wednesday, August 16th, 2023 at 10:01 a.m. County Court will come to in session. the terminology is. If you stand and please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. So we took care of accounts payable stuff already. Agenda approval. There is one item was already taken off. Okay, so no changes. I don't have any changes for the agenda.
I don't know.
I'll make a motion to approve the August 16th, 2023 agenda.
A second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve August 16th, 2023 agenda. Any further discussion? And hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Minutes approval for August 2nd, 2023.
I was not there, so
I read it. So I would move to approve the Harney County Court meeting minutes of August 2nd, 2023.
I'll second. Motion been made and seconded to approve Harney County Court minutes from August 2nd, 2023. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving along to opportunity for public comment.
Are you on the agenda?
I'm on the agenda for that day.
Oh, it's a dark sky.
Excuse me? Okay. Okay, we'll get onto that and say it. So, not seeing any public comment, move along to old business. And the first business off the top there is the dark skies for action. The Dark Skies Association.
So is
International
any
Dark Skies
different
Association
presentation than the other gal that had came previous?
Don Nilsson presented to us a few months ago. And we got a lot of good information and introduction to it. That was the last thing that came before us.
So a lot of work has gone into this. It's actually been a couple of years since I've been doing and there's been a lot of people in the community that have been part of that. And I know Don's been here. It was that time, if not another time, we had a presentation that we invited the county court to, which last June, I believe. And unfortunately, when we able to come to that, and that was something that Bob Hackett and Selena Carrillo. So they are regional division for tourism. Dark Skies is a huge deal right now, just because there are so many places in the world that you can't even see the stars. And we have one of the darkest skies in at least all of the United States, if not the world as well. And so Bob is with Southern Oregon and has been doing a lot of work with Lakeview. So Lakeview has passed that they want to have the dark sky sanctuary. And we've also been working with Malheur County and Harney County. There's been a lot of night sky inventories. And honestly, there's not, we don't have rainy lakes. Even the lakes that we have are not enough to affect it. And what is being asked is there's no ask that any private person should change their lights or requirements. They would like, people on their own to choose lights that are downward facing. The light spectrum makes a difference. So your bluer light finds out and it affects your well light more. And so if they were to ask anyone to voluntarily change, it would be to, hey, when your light burns out, would you mind, thinking about maybe using a light that's more efficient, one that is that's harmful to wildlife, but there is no requirement for any individual. On the county, there's 2 lakes that even exist in county property, that would be asked to, would you put a shield on that, or could you put a motion sensor on it? So as far as the county really is not affected by this, other than what I'm hearing is that there's some concern over the terminology sanctuary, that we're identified as a sanctuary, and that could later down the road, even though they're not requiring anything of us, that could be an issue. And I know Bob has dealt with this in other communities. Bob, do you have more information that you can share?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hello, everybody. Thank you for the chance to be with you. The word sanctuary, I have been working in Lake County on this same project, and just to be clear, the invitation in front of Harney County right now is to join with Lake County in a single project that will have just sort of a major long-term sustainable economic impact in our really super rural communities of Lake and Harney County. Commissioner Albertson also just didn't like the word sanctuary because that meant something very different to him. And I understand that, and I respect that. The terminology really does come from the International Dark Sky Association. They have a Dark Sky Places program. They do dark sky parks, dark sky communities, dark sky reserves, and then they also do, for the most pristine areas, they call them dark sky sanctuaries. And so that terminology is really just one that comes from the Dark Sky Association, and it's the category, due to the pristine nature of the areas we're talking about on public lands in Harney County, that makes the most sense to go for. The other criteria aren't really appropriate to what the asset that we have out in the outback there. So, but I want you to know, I hear that, and I have heard that, and I've had conversations with several people about the word sanctuary, and I'm not trying to cop out. It's just not a thing that we can change. It's sort of a status that they have. So I just wanted to just share that with all of you.
What I was hoping for is Bob is more knowledgeable on that, and probably I'm not a public speaker, so it doesn't come out of my mouth the way I want it to. And so I was hoping that maybe he could answer any questions that you guys have, concerns, anything like that. I actually have not. This is kind of given to me as a chamber director, and the reason it's so important is for tourism. Especially in Eastern Oregon, people come through here and they stop you gas and they keep on trucking. And my job is to figure out, how do we make them stay? How do we help them spend money in a responsible way? So they're not coming in here and they're destroying our place, but we don't want it to change. We're here for a reason. We don't live in Portland because we don't want to live in Portland. And also a thing that's been brought up is if it was a sanctuary, that also prevents them from being able to come in here and make it Portland, because you have the Dark Sky Sanctuary. So you kind of have a way of saying, hey, you can't come in here and build all these great big whatever because we're a Dark Sky Sanctuary and we want it to keep that way. And so it does, and in one way, help us preserve what we have here in Harney County, but it also gives us an avenue to do tourism in a way that people are spread out. They're not, using up all of our resources. And definitely the people that come for events like Dark Sky Tourism, first off, they have to stay at night because obviously they have, it's night time, when the stars are out. And so you're getting that revenue from them spending, motel, RV park, something, at least gas as they're coming through. But typically, the more nights that people stay in our community, the more money they also drop in our community. So from a tourism perspective, that's important. And also, like I said, they tend to be more your pack it in, pack it out type of rule versus like the rainbow people that when they came through here left the trail of garbage as they passed through our community. And so, they tend to be more responsible tourists. What I heard when I was at the Harney County
Stock growers.
stock growers, thank you. Stock growers meeting is they weren't opposed to basically following the regulations that they're asking. They were more opposed to someone telling them that they had to, and that they were open to the county court making some kind of designation, but maybe not the IDA doing that. And I don't know, I know you guys have a lot on your plates, and that's really not anywhere near the top of your guys' agenda. But that is what I was hearing, you know, when they're all done saying their pieces. You know, we're not opposed to it, we just don't want
It becomes a mess. Well,
yes,
right.
that's what I heard.
and I would, if you'll indulge me, I would like to share the things that I spoke about at the stock growers meeting, and that Deanna was there, which was good. Yeah, they're not opposed to voluntarily cooperating and doing dark sky stuff, but they did have issue, as do I, with the sanctuary designation that is, again, mostly an International Dark Sky Association construct for how they do their work. And if you'll bear with me, since I did a lot of research on it, just so we're all hearing it, and I'll read it so I don't go off track. Okay, so what I did was I looked at the application that has been developed. It's been around, and it's very good document, very lengthy. It goes into a lot of things, including all the natural resource, wildlife, you know, public lands, this and that. But what a sanctuary is this is very unusual because of this area. This region is so dark sky, but we have so many different jurisdictions. We have the public lands, we have private land, we have county land, we have state land, various things that makes it interesting. And they've been doing a lot of collaborative work, but Harney County's just kind of coming up on it here toward the end, as far as the county goes. And so I was sharing my thoughts with the stock growers to hear what they thought, if they, you know, have thoughts to share at that time. And at this time, right now, I'm not supportive of formal inclusion of Harney County government, its county-owned lands, or the private properties of landowners, farmers, and ranchers in our unincorporated areas to join in the application to the International Dark Sky Association to become an International Dark Sky Sanctuary. And there's Oregon Outback Dark Sky Network, something like that, is a group that's more, you know, regional here that is also supportive of going for it. But I am very supportive of other stakeholders, the state and federal agencies, you know, tribe or other local governments. The cities won't be part of it, but if they were wanting to be part of it, regional partners in seeking their own dark sky designation, whether they could be a sanctuary without art pieces, or a reserve, or a series of places that together have a new title. Most people know that 75% of Harney County consists of non-county public lands and properties: BLM, Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife, Oregon Department of Transportation, Malheur Wildlife Refuge, Department of State Lands, etc. These non-county state and federal agencies do seem to be on board with seeking it as a collective designation with an inclusive large regional boundary that will be called a sanctuary. Some of them expressed concerns in the application or in the review of the work. Some of those entities had expressed concerns about being recognized as a dark sky sanctuary on their own designated lands due to public misunderstandings of what that meant, concerns of increased disturbances on the lands, and the increased potential need for search and rescue operations. And I would say Harney County government would also share those types of concerns, because it would ultimately involve financial budgetary impacts, possibly staff capacity, unintended consequences of inclusion of county and private land, costs in terms of time, staff, and money for either primary or indirect roles in lighting inventory. They're not asking us to do that, but I'm just saying there's potential for lighting inventory, monitoring, enforcement of regulations, increased cost of providing search and rescue operations for night sky watchers lost or injured, financial costs of potential litigation and ongoing representation and participation in various aspects going forward. It's kind of that unknown, unintended consequences, impacts to agricultural practices, and potential effects on regulation of grazing practices and protection of livestock over time. These costs and complications may not appear at the beginning. It's not the intent for that to happen, but I believe it would likely emerge and increase over time. If the state and federal agency partners within Harney County want to seek that designation again for their public lands that they manage, or as part of a regional application that does not include county and private lands, I would definitely be fine with that. However, as yet, I don't see enough benefit to risk reasons for Harney County to join in this multi-jurisdictional, multiple use, tri-county, and multiple land use application. It hasn't been done before because it's a new thing. It's very, got a lot of pieces to it. And I'm not convinced that the anticipated increased tourism economic benefit that's described in the materials is even close to outweighing the potential downsides. Again, this is my opinion based on so far my research. Yes, Harney County would likely benefit from tourism-related visitor spending here from those who seek the dark sky experiences. We already do benefit from that because it does occur. We're known as a dark sky area. Even 25 years ago, before I moved out here in Virginia, I was aware of it. Harney County, in my view, needs to continue to evaluate the pros and cons on this, and have more than just me, looking at it hard. Important areas of concern and consideration from the county and rural private property perspectives include adequate ordinances. Harney County zoning ordinance of 2014 addresses outdoor lighting. It is sufficient, reasonable, and common sense. It's not as detailed as the light management plan coming out. It allows the county to address those matters and situations with common sense and attention to particulars as they emerge. The impact of private property rights. The maps included in the dark sky application materials show that of the 3-county sanctuary area, and they're not the exact county boundaries, but they include Lake County and Malheur, that Harney County has the greatest amount of private land involved, and I believe that's important. Additional regulations and mandates. Detailed regulations and mandates from the light management plan, even if it doesn't seem a lot, do add unnecessary levels of government or quasi-governmental oversight of our ranches and farms that may seem to be minimal at first, but they may open the door to later court decisions that overstep, because the courts have been known to overstep, in my opinion, from one affiliation, light management, to so many other things that lawyers and special interest groups litigate to combine with various other environmental and management impacts. The impacts to agriculture, although private property is not supposed to be affected and they're not forced to do anything, the light management plan has the potential to limit landowners' choices in their own resource management, if not from the dark sky, but from the BLM and other entities that may say we're a sky sanctuary, etc. I would disagree with those that say that night lighting does not make a difference in night safety. I've read that in a couple articles. But as we know, ask any farmer or rancher how quickly law enforcement can make the drive out to protect them. Just ask them how much night lighting can affect predator attacks on livestock and family. Assurances today that these matters will be factored into and protected in future regulations are not reassuring to me. What about the potential conveyance of such limitations and obligations when property changes ownership? Just a lot of things. Jurisdiction, combining multiple public and private lands into one huge sanctuary that includes 3 vast frontier Oregon counties with multiple types of landowners into one large contiguous sanctuary and one light management plan and authority has jurisdictional implications and creates openings for further pressuring of concessions from agriculture over time. One land manager in charge of lighting. I mean, obviously, if you have a designated area and you have a light management plan, there's got to be someone in charge, but I don't like that thought. The county needs to retain its local governing authority, what little we seem to have on local planning, land use, zoning, and building regulations to the greatest extent possible. I would not want to abrogate that role that we have for the county to one of the land managers involved in this collaboration, nor would I want to volunteer the county to take on that responsibility for their lands. Litigation, formal sanctuary designations, whether land related or otherwise, present considerable litigation opportunities for special interest groups external to Harney County to burden us with legal challenges and barriers in order to pursue their agendas. And then local decision-making and control. As elected officials, we work for people of Harney County directly to represent and be held accountable for the policies that affect them. With a combination of state, federal, and other non-elected agencies and entities having collective or appointed decision-making authority over plans and regulations across such differing jurisdictions, the direct representation and accountability is removed. Elected officials have a unique accountability that we take seriously and that we should be reluctant to relinquish. So I know some of this is repetitive because I was just typing it when I was thinking it, but again, we can still look at the pros and cons, but at this time, I see very little direct benefit to Harney County, our unincorporated areas, and to our rural private landowners in having us formally become part of this designation. I see potential risks and I can foresee unintended consequences to our local land use and planning responsibilities. I think I'll just skim over some of the rest, but the stock growers in attendance, they love being dark sky. They don't want to not, they said they'll be happy to change out to different types of laying downward if needed. No problem, voluntarily, but they do share some of these concerns that I've been reading to you here on the land use stuff. And I believe that choosing for Harney County to choose not to join in this sanctuary application as it is now would not harm the goal of retaining dark skies here in Harney County. And I hope that there can be a way to work with them on their rules of what constitutes a sanctuary or what they need that can respect our concerns as well. Harney County can still share the basic principles of the Oregon Outback Dark Sky Network without formally signing on. We can continue to cooperate and entertain voluntary consideration of specific dark sky initiatives on a case-by-case basis moving forward. And with that, we can thereby retain our local governing prerogatives on behalf of our people all at the same time. That was the discussion. And so that on August 10th, that's when I presented my thoughts to the Harney County stock growers, and they agreed with those concerns, and they took a vote and asked me to relay that their position is that they do not support Harney County seeking to enter into formal sanctuary status as an Oregon Outback Dark Sky Network or International Dark Sky Association sanctuary, but they are very much willing to do their part voluntarily to keep it dark sky on their lands. So, it feels probably like a big pushback. I'm thinking to maybe to Bob and to Deanna here, but it hadn't really been on my agenda till recently. It hadn't been something that I started researching and thought about. And I looked at it looked like the previous county judge may have been privy to stuff because his name is in there, but that was never anything on our agendas or shared with the rest of us. So at this point, we're kind of waking up and looking at it right now. And I, be happy to.
So I do have some information so that you can be more educated about it, whether you choose to vote yes or no today or not. This was put together by Travel Oregon.
Thank you.
So let's have most of the information and follow that we shared. There are some concerns like search and rescue is one of the things that I heard, and the way you're kind of looking and that is if we can have organized events so that you don't just have people just going out and being everywhere. Our goal is to try to put together something like once a month. I know there is also a lady that's planned on next summer doing every weekend something up in the Skeens Mountain. If we can have some organized things, then that tends to few people come to us wandering all over the place and getting lost. If they can be organized into, okay, it's going to get the round barn this month, maybe they'll be up on the Steams Mountain this month. So that kind of helps alleviate some of that search and rescue concern.
And that can take place regardless of St.
It can.
And I hear how in the world of dark sky people, a sanctuary may be of particular interest to them to come. But, you know, it's also my understanding that Harney County is home to world-class dark skies, that's a true statement, and that we're not, that statement is not beholding to or depending on sanctuary status for us to be able to market ourselves as such. We might not use the word sanctuary, but dark, if that was the main tourism focus, you could be dark sky Harney County, right? I'm guessing.
You can target yourself that way. It won't be, it would be limited to only what we put out there versus what you have in front of you is Travel Oregon. And so
Travel Oregon,
and if
out there without some kind of a designation, Travel Oregon wouldn't put out there that Harney County is a dark sky area.
We would have to, that would be something that we would have to go above and beyond to try to get that out there. Where if we are part of the sanctuary, then you have people from all over the world that's if they're in that. So it does kind of affect with the tourism aspect. And I'm sure that Bob has more information on that just because he's been dealing with it way longer than I have. I have got that much information in his. I know that BLM, Forest Service, and County Court, and all that, the judge were a part of a lot of meetings that took place, and they know that we kind of dropped off here the last a little bit, and so you know, maybe that's why you guys haven't heard about it as much. But I'm sure that he did answer more questions about what that really entails and what would be the pros and cons for Harney County not being on board.
So for the record, I received an email communication from Burns BLM district manager Jeff Rose, and he states, we're a little behind with our letter of support for the Dark Skies project. BLM plans to send a letter supporting the project. Our letter of support will state that we believe this is a good direction and will benefit a number of resources. Burns district will work to implement the best management practices identified in the new BLM Night Sky and Dark Environment Technical Note 457, as well as those identified in the Lightscape Management Plan from the Dark Skies Group. Let me know if you have any questions. So having said that, and looking at the map of the proposed area and looking at the land status, ownership status of the areas within the proposed sanctuary, again, a vast majority of it, 75, 80% of it, higher even maybe, I don't mean, without adding up the acreage, is public land or of some kind, a government-owned land of some kind. That right there would tell me that there's already going to potentially become unintended consequences of grazing permits. Is this another element that gets put into grazing permits in the NEPA process when permits are reviewed for any kind of activity on public lands, whether it's grazing or events of any kind whatsoever that happen on public lands and have to have a permit for those purposes. So that concerns me. In and of it, that right there, if the county was to adopt a proclamation, a resolution, joining in the Dark Skies Sanctuary, what comes down the road after that? In recent past here in state of Oregon, the Move the Oregon Border movement, the people of Harney County voted to discuss the topic. And then we have to have 3 meetings a year on that. That simple act alone has been misconstrued to the point and has been used in conversations to say that the people of Harney County voted to secede from Oregon. That is not what the vote said. That's not what the intention of that vote was. So I'm concerned that by joining in and saying we want to become part of the sanctuary, Dark Sky Sanctuary area, that becomes misconstrued down the line that Harney County is in favor of any future regulations that might come out because of this, whether it's zoning or lighting regulations of whatever flavor it might be. Again, those are the unintended aspects of it. It's my understanding that just recently, within the last week or two, I believe, there was a Dark Skies event held at the Round Barn Visitor Center. There was fees charged.
No, there was not.
There was not fees charged? Because the Facebook page said there was a fee charged.
Originally, there was supposed to be fees, and they wanted to make it a big festival, and they decided that this year to charge no fees. So there was no requirement for permits or anything like that. They just wanted to start gathering people together. They had 21 people at that event. They've also done one at the library. They've done them out at the refuge in the past. They've done one during the bird festival. So there is a lot of interest in having them here. And you know, they've gone well at the ones that we have had.
So there was no fees charged for this one, and maybe because it's in its early stages, infancy stages of organization. But then down the road, that doesn't preclude that fees would be charged for future events, attendance,
Right. And
for people attending.
Permits, permitting.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially on public lands. If there's events on public land and it's organized event and there's fees charged and everything, there has to be permits obtained through the Bureau of Land Management. So ultimately, then, what is the benefit, pro, con, of designating this entire area, the county joining in, beyond the tourism part of it? We've heard about the tourism part of it. What is the pro, con benefit of having the whole area designated as a sanctuary, dark sky sanctuary area?
So even if you do away with the tourism, you have migratory birds. We're on the Pacific Byway, and what they're finding is that it's freeing up the birds for the migratory. They're not able to. So if we did not maintain our dark skies, and that has the potential of making it so the birds don't come through here, and we make a lot of money off of a bird fest on people coming to our community to see the birds. And I realize that not everybody enjoys the bird watchers. That's another subject, but that does benefit our community a lot, and wildlife, through agriculture. I mean, there's a lot of different things. And I realize right now we have dark skies, and the idea that we're good now, but if we don't maintain that, then it won't take long before we are like Portland and all these other places. You can actually, and I don't have it with me, but the map of how it has changed, and it's all growing in around us. And if we don't start making plans to preserve that, then there's nothing for the future to keep the lifestyle that we have.
Well, I think even in your own verbiage there, talking about preservation, that is going to come along eventually with regulation.
It already is, as we can see the new sage-grouse mapping. There's a lot of things, outside of actual light and that's already taking place with wildlife designations that do preclude any major changes in this area, our own land use plans. I think this county's been very proactive in trying to preserve what we do have, because we do keep so much of it in ag land, and we prevent a lot of building on our ag land that other counties have not taken those steps to do. And so I think I'd like to turn the conversation just a little bit into a little more positive direction. I don't believe that this county court is, the disclosure to maybe vote on a sanctuary. But what I would encourage is working with private landowners if they want to fill out an application and be designated, through this organization. I do believe that there would be certain landowners here that might enjoy having events and bringing in some dollars. There's a lot of ranching tourism that we haven't really even explored in this area that could be developed through this concept, but as a partnership with local landowners versus with the county in general. There are certain county properties, and if a specific property were to be proposed to us to be looked at versus a very broad sweeping designation, I think that would be a little different conversation for us. There's a lot of state lands in this county as well that could be looked at as far as what their current status are. And, really they've let some of those lands be developed that maybe I'm opposed to personally. Those could be conversations of, what the state lands are doing in this county, because there are a lot of state lands. And so I think kind of taking the scale back down instead of trying to do a really broad sweeping designation, that if, we want to do this, and I do think that it can be some potential for tourism here. We have some dude ranches here. We have some other things that are in perfect locations to promote this. And then, with the current permitting process that the federal lands already have in place, to have organized events, I strongly encourage those to be pursued, because it does give it a little safer boundary where you don't have people potentially being out in harm's way and getting themselves into situations out on the federal lands because they are so remote, And so I would strongly encourage this organization on working with our federal lands for permits to have organized events, working with local landowners. This is a very unique place, but I know in all my sage-grouse meetings and everything else I go to, we're already called out nationally, internationally on the unique landscape that we do have here, and on the conservation efforts that are currently occurring here that prevent us from being developed. And so, I think that we can, certainly look at one-on-one situations of, a potential designation. We do have some areas of county land that technically are kind of more of a park designation. And, those are conversations to be had. But, what the county really needs to is in this partnership is sometimes those lands or something might need funding and improvement to make them more accessible for the public to use for such events. And so it's trying to figure out how to partner together to make it a place where people could potentially go and enjoy those type of events. So
we have a pretty full schedule today. I echo a lot of what Commissioner Shellman has said. I echo the concerns that Commissioner Doro has said. And I also verbally want to say I'm in favor of the volunteer and the education part of it. Educating the private landowners when they do replace a light or something, that they choose something that's conducive to these goals. So I'm very in favor of that part of it, and the private individual involvement in this. I'm very much in favor of that. Having said that, and I think it's important that at this time we probably I'll make a motion then that think how to phrase this motion. I would make a motion to vote on whether or not Harney County joins in the dark skies sanctuary designation. Is that right? Does that sound okay?
It might die for lack of a second, but you can make the motion.
Okay. Well, if it dies, then I would pass along some other motion. But I think it's important that we do make a vote, take a official position on it. Myself.
I still feel that instead of it being a broad sweeping county, if you want to formally say that we are opposed to the sanctuary designation as a whole, we can go ahead and make a vote on that. And
well, I'm not saying opposed. I'm making a motion that we vote on whether or not we join in the request
for the
application, because that application is very far along as far as letters of support and the intent of other entities who are happy to have it.
May I just add one point right now before you actually can take the vote, because I understand you've got time and I appreciate the commissioner very deep reading of the application, and you got everything in there very, very well. The one thing I do want to point out is what the resolution that is in front of you all right now does not speak to private landowners. It just does not speak to that. It speaks to lights, and we're only talking about lights. This is not a land use. This has nothing to do with land use. This is a light management plan. And so when the BLM is signing on, they are saying that the BLM at the national level now has technical notes on best lighting practices that they are going to follow. This has nothing to do with their grazing leases, with how they manage land. And so what's in front of you and what was in front of Lake County as a commission was to adopt a resolution supporting the light management plan that the BLM, the Forest Service, Malheur, lands, all folks have signed on to for county-owned property within the footprint of the sanctuary. By our inventories, we're talking about 2 lights owned by the county in the footprint of county land in the footprint of the proposed sanctuary with lights on it. And so I just want to be clear that that's what's in front of you. It's not really, the resolution is to support the light management plan that every other entity has supported, as the judge wrote, that District Manager Rose is supporting. And so that I just wanted to clarify that's what's in front of you.
So our resolution then would only cover the 2 lights, the 2 pieces of property, and when we have a county yard on the east side of the Steens, Andrews, and we have county property in Diamond.
Correct.
And some other scatterings that we don't have any development on, but those are the only areas that we have any development on. So then without the county buying in, or I don't want to say buying in, but without the county taking action on a resolution that addresses those 2 properties individually or specifically, the sanctuary can still be called a sanctuary by name without the county's action.
Well, and that's the other thing I had, that was my second point, is that yes, only 2 lights, and yes, BLM and the wildlife refuges are all support. 99.9% of the acreage we're discussing is actually assigned on to support it. However, that designation would not go forward with the International Dark Sky Association without the county supporting the light management plan on their land. And so this is your decision. The impact that will have, just for clarity, is that we proceed with a dark sky sanctuary application for Lake County, all signatories involved. And that's because we know that by the inclusion of Harney County without any support is going to be a no-go with the IDA. And just because the other part of the application is not your perfect dark sky, which you have. It's also the community support and the support of agencies in support of that light management plan. And they are a third party, they are a non-governmental group, the IDA. They have no legal enforcement. They certify properties that approach them to preserve their night skies. These are the criteria. If you run foul of that criteria, what happens is you lose your designation. That's the sum total. That's the penalty. So I just want to share the reality of that.
I still think we could just change those lights on the county properties
with internal policy,
or just do it. I mean, do we have to make policy and regulation for every action we take? Let's just
so I will amend my motion, because really the issue before us is the application or submittal creation of a resolution designating county property or
the county supporting the light management plan for the sanctuary on land that the county itself actually owns and administers, nothing else.
I hate to say it, but I make a motion to table this until the county court has time to review the proclamation further and better understand where those properties are located and what lights are being discussed. I like that.
Well, my motion was up first, so we have to address it first, technically.
Did it die from lack of
Well, I didn't call for a second yet.
Okay, call for a second.
So my motion is basically, should the county take action to join in with application and resolution designating dark sky sanctuary. The second.
Just make that decision today.
Yes.
I'll second.
I have, the motion has been made for the county's involvement in joining the sanctuary, creating a resolution and proclamation as it's stated in this sample document, for joining in the dark skies sanctuary in Harney County. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of joining in of this proclamation, the county creating this proclamation for these purposes, signify by saying aye. Hearing none, those opposed signify. What is it, nay vote?
Nay.
Nay. Let the record show that there are no ayes in favor of and 3 nays opposing.
And whether it needs to be a motion or not, I would like to have us agree to specifically look at the county properties and make sure we all know exactly what we're talking about and voluntarily make this change as we can to the lighting.
Just like is, yes, I would agree. Just like is impressed upon for private landowners and their private involvement or personal private involvement and participation in the light management plan, I would say that the county would take the same stance. All right. Again, I have a full schedule. So moving on. Next item under old business is the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, final draft to sign. There was some edits to be made. Did we get a copy of it?
They've been changed.
Okay, it is. Did you have a Commissioner Shellman? Did you have a chance to review it?
No.
Okay, it sat in your box for a while, but I think
It
you were
probably did. I've been here, there, and everywhere in July.
the first, what is it, 40 pages or
I'll take the
so?
Cliff Notes version.
I will say I did bite the bullet and read the whole darn thing. And however, they made a couple changes and I don't know which maps, whatever, and I haven't seen it since. I'm not sure when did they make some changes? Really late after they'd been here. I saw a couple things that they just put the wrong year and I just said, hey, can you just change those? But then I'm not sure what the nature of what Irene Jerome may have communicated with Tammy or
it's 22, 23.
So
there was a map. It's still the same map. There's just a piece that was added on the top of it.
What was that again?
Yeah,
21?
Like 22 or 23.
Do they have page numbers?
Oh, yeah, except for 21.
they don't page number
The
the
maps are not.
page number.
Oh,
It's like in between. I don't think the
Yeah.
maps.
So I'm not
It's
sure
in
what they
between.
changed.
So it's
the vegetation class map.
There's several. There's a wildfire
that one.
hazard. So
They
it's in
added
the
that
verbiage.
top part, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Just verbiage on the page.
Yeah.
could you read that to us? It's
Overall wildfire risk combines both the likelihood of a wildfire and the expected impacts of a wildfire on highly valued resources and assets. Overall wildfire risk also reflects the susceptibility of resources and assets to wildfire of different intensities and the likelihood of those intensities. Updated vegetation maps and the associated wildfire hazards are being developed and will be integrated into this document in 2024 during the annual CWPP review.
And I know that there's more to come on the wildfire risk mapping. So what's your thought when you read that? Is that like, this is the map they put in for this plan at this time?
Well, one of our bigger problems with what the state presented was the lack of recognizing management when it came to vegetation.
Right.
And so that's where, with calling out vegetation in general, but not the management is where we fall deficient again.
Okay.
When we talk about these maps, is it just calling out vegetation load at one snapshot in time? Because that was really the problem with the state mapping, was that it didn't take into consideration that a lot of the vegetation in this area does have specific management that does occur.
I wonder if a couple of sentences in that box to specifically say that mitigation efforts of management on these vegetated lands, are not depicted here, and just some kind of proviso.
Yeah.
If you can think of a sentence or two that will make sure that that's
So
pointed out.
Again, based on this discussion now, Commissioner Showman hasn't had a chance to review it. Would we like to table this again?
If we could, and then I'll contact Irene regarding that and just see, somewhere within the document she calls that out, because like I say, that was our biggest problem when it came to the state mapping, was that they did not.
It mentions mitigation a little bit, but not in that.
But you've got to be specific of what type of mitigation you're talking about.
Yeah.
I saw it in my, and I read through it fairly quickly, I will say, but I read through it and saw it as a list of resources, identified the resources available, identified the hazards, the areas, the where juniper starts to encroach in lower valley area here, the Harney Valley. And I saw those kind of things, but I myself, there is a little bit on chapter 6, wildfire mitigation plan, talking about defensible spaces and those kind of efforts. But I didn't see in the plan itself, what is the plan? How are we going to respond? Portion of it, I felt was lacking in it myself.
Almost all government plans fail in that regard, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Having been a Marine, they're not what I call a plan, an implementable.
Yeah, it identifies the resources and the hazards, but it doesn't get down to how are we going to respond to it. And I guess in some respect, identifying the resources such as the RFPAs and whatnot is a portion of how we respond to it, but it doesn't. I don't know if there's like a coordination element that's missing here or what.
Well, because even what, the work that our soil and water conservation district is currently doing, it's really focusing on juniper removal and things like that mirroring. So I guess, one question I'd ask her is how much involvement they've had with the development of this, because they're really taking the lead on a lot of the plan itself for this area and what they're implementing. And they're the ones actually implementing a plan. And so if their work isn't included in some framework within this, then we're kind of missing a really big segment of implementation, because they are implementing.
I would value your review of this, so that for that very reason.
I would, because you have
I just did not have
because you have been engaged with a lot of those conversations.
Yeah.
So the mitigation, chapter 6 mitigation plan does talk about, and then without going into it here a lot, but fuel reduction, prevention.
But like you're saying, how are we getting there? A lot of it is to the soil and water conservation district in there.
Is Ms. Jerome still on contract for this, or is it a deliverable done?
I don't know. Actually, I was going to ask you guys about this when this was let and everything, and was going to try to do some.
Was leading up this through her office is really how it came to us, was through Suzanne at the time. We didn't directly initiate.
No, we didn't approve a contract before, as far as I know.
Well, I'm sure you both saw the recent email from GEODC, Susan Christensen. Is that right? Christensen, in regards to Harney County's designation as extreme or whatever, and that she could submit she could submit grant proposal based on that designation.
Conversation that we need to have.
I know it, but I'm just saying,
I
she
didn't
said that the
do
part of
that
that funding can be used for this process.
Oh,
So if we incurred more cost of it,
Okay.
then I think there might be avenues for.
Well, first, let me just say that they did a great job, even if it's not an action plan like I like to have. And Irene is very great to work with, and all the players really. So the information in there is pretty accurate as far as the players.
I agree.
We meet, we understand.
Like plan's not quite the right word for the document, though,
Yeah.
in some regards. It's more of an overview versus a plan.
But if this aspect that Commissioner Shellman can help see if there's just a couple more things we need in there,
Because the
then it'll make it
CWMA
better.
has a plan, and so if their plan isn't included in this plan, then we're really for the plan.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and if there's an action and attack plan somewhere, whether it's with Bureau of Land Management or the RFPs themselves, then those would be appendices or addendums to this plan of how we're going to attack it. This identifies the resources and the hazard. These plans identify how we're going to attack it. Then
it makes
yes,
a plan versus the overview.
yeah. So all right, so it's
I'll work on
consensus then to table again.
Yeah, I'll try to have it done prior to the next meeting.
Okay, try to move along here. New business, Abby Lee, VP for College and Public Relations, TVCC, presenting TVCC 2023-2024 contract for out-of-district services delivery agreement and update from Gretchen Bates on the Burns Center.
We're all warmed up for you.
Being part of listening to some of that discussion. Hopefully this will be an easier discussion, but my name is Abby Lee, and I've been at Pleasant Valley Community College since 1999. So I love TVCC. I love what we do, and you see me every time we lose one of our employees. I get sent back out to Burns. I love Burns. We just had our Vice President of Academic Affairs, Eddie Alves, left us, and we got an easier job that pays more, and it is remote. So how do you hate that? But you saw me a couple of years ago when I kind of was in the same position of, okay, we got to get out to Harney County. And when I came here and I saw the condition as I reported of our center, we immediately invested in that center. And we put a new roof, we've got new carpets, and really just redesigned it so that I think it's a great place for students. We also are going to be redoing the siding and adding a covered porch to protect some of that entryway and getting some new signage. So I'm here to report to you that we are committed to Harney County and that we know that there's more that we can do here and should do here. And so I've been out twice in the last month, just meeting with Gretchen and seeing what we can do. And one of the pieces that we're especially excited about is working a little bit more closely with high desert partnerships. We really see that as a group that is already doing a lot of this work, and as a group that is kind of a ready-made advisory committee to say, what should TVC be doing? I had a conversation with one of our fantastic faculty, Marcus Nichols, who comes out here a lot, and he is also really committed to, I think, some pretty innovative ideas and making sure that we are seen as the education leader, particularly in natural resource and conservation where that is appropriate. But also, we know that we who live in rural areas do so because we love it, not because we're not smart enough to live somewhere else. And so we want to make sure that students who live in Harney County get the training that they need to be able to come back here and continue to preserve this way of life. So we're committed to that. What you see in front of you is the proposal, and I'm sorry, I thought you had gotten that sooner. Do you have a contract? Like I said, we have a project. Okay.
And we haven't, my commissioners haven't seen it.
Okay. We are proposing, you don't need to do it today if you'd like to consider. We're proposing no changes. The minimum $10,000 request for support. And then again, one of our offers is that we are contributing even more back into the center so that we can continue this support. But eventually I'd like to bring back higher numbers of students that we're serving, and then we would ask for potentially more support, but really just continuing what you've been doing that helps us make sure that we have a person here in Harney County that people can come to the center and do all their testing, get help with registration and all of those pieces. So I do have a report for you. I will hand out, and really on the third page is kind of that priority piece of how many students we're serving. I think that's obviously, as commissioners, an important look at what's happening in Harney County. And so we currently have about 30 individuals who live in your community and are taking classes through TDCC. We have other students who actually have moved to Ontario, live in our dorms, or, you know, and so we've not counted those in the numbers of students that are being served. And a couple of things that we really are, you've asked us to do, and I think you've responded with the GED testing. That is finally really up and going, and we have students who are able to take those classes in the evenings at our center, and we're able to do all the testing here. So we broke down all those barriers. When either state or federal programs told us no, we found ways around that, and I think that's been a good development. We also have a really exciting partnership with the hospital, and we've got approval from the State Board of Nursing to be able to do a hybrid CNA course. So we're able to kind of get that back in the community, and we're hoping to hire someone later this month and get that going this fall. We really need 4 to 5 students in that program to make it viable. And one of the things that I discussed with our administration this last week in preparation for how are we going to get this up and going? How are we going to get these students? One of the concerns with CNA is we know we need it, but it doesn't qualify for financial aid because it's not a degree program. So right now the cost is about $750 for tuition just for the credits for the program. And then there's about $500 worth of supplies. And so for this first cohort, and in time for us to promote this at the fair and for those other things, we're actually going to be waiving the tuition for those students who want to sign up for this fall. And just to really make sure that we're getting people trained and getting them into the community and knowing that this is actually happening. I think we've talked about it long enough, and we need to get this up and going. So if you know anyone who's listening, who's interested in becoming a CNA, we really are excited about this program. We're going to invest in that to make sure that we can get it up and going and really serve the community this fall.
Abby, you know, that touched on the big issue that I would love to see where the community colleges are allowed to, and where there's financial aid for, in some ways, more blue collar, not necessarily CNA, because that is what our workforce needs. It is what our state and our nation need. And I learned at the Power Eastern Oregon Summit last year when I went. I can't go this year, but last year there was a panel of the colleges and the community colleges there. And when that question was raised, they said, our charter doesn't let us, you know, we aren't allowed to do non-degree producing stuff. And now I know that now there seems like it's opening up, but is that being advocated for amongst the professionals in those fields? Because that's what I know the construction contractors here in our community, they have turnover on their people. You know, if they could have some basic stuff that is more, you know, if the community college can play a role, I can see where we can really help people and help our community as well.
Yeah, so we really do have a lot of constraints, particularly on that financial aid piece that I don't know that we're going to be able to fix, but what we can do is we can figure it out amongst ourselves, right? We can get grants. We can provide short-term training, and to your point, a CDL, a CNA, you know, those are things that people need, and then they can scaffold that to go on to other things, or they just are able to get a job. And that's, I think, the beauty about these kinds of agreements is that we get to set the rules, and we get to take those dollars and we can reinvest the FTE dollars that we also get from the state and figure out what works for this community. And again, I really think I'm super excited about HIDA, the partnership, because I think that's a group that we can get to the table and with partnerships and support letters, and we can say, hey, we don't need a degree program. We may want a certificate, or now we're looking at industry badges, right? And so I think really figuring out what students need. We are the educators, and so I'm so proprietary about being the ones who set up that training, and so that our businesses aren't setting up the training. They're providing the jobs. We don't create the jobs, government doesn't create the jobs, but we should be able to support that so that immediately people can live in their communities and contribute to the local economy. So I think to your point, we're really starting to look at that, and that's one of our answers on CNA. I don't know that students can come up with $2,000 out of their pocket to take these classes.
I see all the economic stuff that's been coming down on all of us across the nation, and now it's starting to really hit home here too. I mean, people are having a hard time. They're having to really budget their food now. They're having to, hard times they're about here. So
we know there's a need for nursing assistants in your community, in your hospitals, and long-term care centers, and home health. Making sure that people can stay in their home. So I think that's one of the things that I'm here to offer is that with your support, if you will continue the COG with us, that we're going to reinvest those dollars, and we're going to try to be a little more innovative about what fits your community. Attached to the back of your report, though, I just printed out, just for your convenience, a list of all of our online classes. And so there's a whole host of degree programs. So if a student really wants to do that, but they're living in this community, we have a lot of opportunities for students just to take online classes and then to get that technology support at the center. So just a few highlights, but I appreciate the time to be here.
Question, and it might be in the verbiage somewhere, but when you did the head count, you have regular and you have the dual credit, and it looks like back in 2019 to 20, there was like 75 dual credit, and now it's much less. What is the reason for that?
So that really is due to educators who retire. So when we lose a teacher, we've really struggled to, we have huge constraints on community colleges that four-year universities actually don't have, only in Oregon. And so in order to be dual credit certified at the high school, and we love that, right? Because kids are taking classes and then they can just do a couple extra assignments and get college credit. That instructor must have a master's degree in that subject matter. And universities proposed that many years ago because they wanted to make sure that community colleges weren't providing lesser instruction, and then these students were transferring to the universities where all the professors were. But the universities actually don't have that constraint. So they can approve instructors with bachelor degrees to teach those classes. And so
that makes no sense.
We are really fighting at the legislature. I'm going to say that loudly. We really are advocating because.
Do you have a bill number?
We can't even get a bill number.
So you don't even have a legislative concept.
We have a legislative concept. We can't get a legislative support right now. And some of our local, Senator Bentley is super supportive. Owens is super supportive. But I think collectively as community colleges, we really need to coalesce around this idea because, for example, we were asked we lost an instructor in Vail, a long-time instructor who has taught English for us forever, and lots of students are being served, and we have brand new teachers that are going through alternative certification, which is exciting, right? We need teachers, but they don't meet the minimum credentials for what we need, and then our instructors can't be this instructor of record. So it's a larger discussion, but back to your point, losing one or two experienced teachers out in your community really changes that for us.
All right, thank you.
The other thing that's exciting for us, though, is each high school now has a college navigator as part of the counselor opportunities. And so they are going to be responsible for making sure that students are connected to these programs. And we did work with one of our math instructors to get math approved at Lawrence High School, so that we're going to see a lot more in-person work. That's one of Gretchen's responsibilities, to get out to all of these high schools and see what other opportunities, and where we can be flexible, we want to be flexible.
I would like to see Oregon as a state change some of their things that they do that nobody else, that they've traditionally not been as good on reciprocity with other state credentialed people on all kinds of things, and it doesn't mean that makes Oregon's outcomes better. It's not making outcomes better. They just do that. I don't know if it's to protect their own jobs, but you're not getting always the best applicants anymore.
We're lowest in the nation for the number of high school students who've taken dual credit. Our partners across the river from where we live, 40% of those high school students are graduating with college credit, and 8% are graduating in Oregon. So for all the things that we think we're doing, we've got some structural barriers. But I think that we have some great opportunities to just work around those and to be a leader and to ask for forgiveness. So we're gonna keep pushing the envelope on those things because it matters to our students and we know it matters to them.
Well, I know that early on when I was a commissioner, there had not been a level of partnership and you guys coming out here, or we didn't realize if you were. The relationship wasn't as good as it is now, and I really did appreciate how the president and everybody else came out, and then you invested in the facility, and you heard us on GED. So I feel like you are listening, and that's great.
It was more that we can do. I hope to come back next year and show you even more.
Great. So before us, we have the Treasure Valley Community College in Harney County, Oregon contract out of district service delivery agreement. It's $10,000. It's within the procurement budget, policy for me to sign it. So with your, I just ask, I guess, for your.
Can I just look at it?
Sure.
She wasn't in our.
She said it had not been changed from previous years.
Yeah.
I feel like I still need to look.
Yeah. The language.
And traditionally, I would run everything by our county council before entering into it. But if it is the same, then he should have already reviewed it.
She actually had the president sign that one.
Okay.
Is that different than the one that they have?
Yeah, this one has no precedent.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. I just brought 2 copies in the event that you wanted to approve it.
Okay.
And again, it's nothing
I've got a copy
except for
of
it says
too.
23, 24 at the top.
I would actually make a motion to approve the signing of the contract with TVCC.
I'll second. Motion's been made to sign and enter into the contract with TVCC and been seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
I'm excited you're going to work closely with that as a partnership.
Yes.
So you have a lot of great things.
And there's some things that TVCC and HDP have been doing that I haven't actually known about yet. So I'm still trying to know. One thing I would mention on the natural resources program is that last year we tried to put wildland fire short course over spring break, and that didn't work out for sorry, it didn't work out. What's going to happen this fall for high school students, and I'm not sure if community members can join too, but there's going to be a wildland fire course offered online. For like 5 high schools are participating, and Burns High School is one of them. And into that, you would have your certification if you pass the field test and the PAC test. The PAC test should have arranged separately, but we will have that online course. The very end, there'll be a 1-day field course, a field day that's required, and then you walk away with your certifications minus your PAC test. So that's really exciting. I think Marcus has done some great work to pull that together, and we're very excited about that. So that's one other thing I mentioned. You'll see us at the fair. We're going to try to do some new things there, and yeah, we really appreciate your support. And I'm glad that we've been able to be responsive to what the county board has asked for based upon what you're doing in the community.
Well, I think you're a valuable member of the community and partner in the community in the education world. I really do. When I graduated from Burns Union High School, we didn't have these opportunities. So it's important.
Online classes available now. It's opportunity ability increases. I can get things ahead, but if something pops up that you can think of that we can help with, you guys all have my cell phone number and text me or
And
Yes,
we're actually gonna have
my
a
only
small luncheon,
question
too.
to you would be, I didn't see, I saw Crane mentioned in here, but I did not see Sylvie's River Charter School. And I know we do have students that
Yes.
attend. And so I think that should be captured in this in the future, because we do have a lot of
Okay,
students that are receiving credit
maybe
from
we should put
TVCC.
draft on the top of this, and I'll say whether it's Sylvia. Yes, that's right. And we hadn't included those students because most of them are online, but to your point, so I reached out to Matt Holly,
Right, Matt's superintendent for both districts, yes.
And he was out in Vail before, so we have a
Right.
close relationship. I think, again, there's a lot more that we can be doing.
Well, and we do have a tutoring set. I'm the board chair for Sylvie's, just FYI, but we do have a center opening in Vail, between Vail and Ontario. And so hopefully that connection can be made as well.
In fact, we was just over in
enhancing that.
We need to be.
Yeah, no, it can really go somewhere. So
it helps us just for time we're doing. Well, thank you so much. And I didn't want to hand these out earlier because I didn't want any kind of they're well below any gifts.
They're below $50.
I should pay you to advertise for us, but really just appreciate what you do, and it's nice to have a little bit of our promotional materials out in your community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And email me as things come up, if there are more opportunities, but you'll be caring for me a lot more this year.
What is the mascot?
A checker.
A chucker?
It's a running checker. So yeah. That's a major failing. It's a fierce checker.
Well, I thought maybe kind of woodpecker, but I wasn't sure.
I'm not good at my birds anyway. I was going to take a stab at it.
You're having, I know you guys didn't attend today, but we bridged it today because Abby's in town. But we are having a advisory committee luncheon. Yeah, it's small little affair just to update people and
Say that again.
The advisory committee luncheon.
When?
Today.
Oh, sorry.
She has work good on county court. Yes, yeah. We'll plan another one kind of November time.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
I mean to push you out, but we're gonna move right along here.
Thank you so much for coming.
Next item up is Lieutenant Worley with the Grant County contract. Hello, Lieutenant. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good. Is this a renewal?
No, it is not a renewal.
Okay.
So when SB 48 passed in July, or went into effect in July, I should say, it was presented to maybe do a contract with Grant County in case we start housing more people under SB 48 and we run out of space. And right now, the way that things are going, we haven't even come close to those numbers, but just to continue moving forward with the contract. So that way, if we ever got to that point, that we would have a contingency plan where they would be willing to house our individuals in custody.
Did we, I'd have to open up my copy of the budget and everything, but did we address this in the budget for this year?
Is we do have a contracts budget line that when we do have to have another county house an individual for us, that's where we pay it out of, and we have sufficient funds in there. If we're housing, 1 or 2 inmates a year, absolutely, then we have enough funds. So, but I just manage those as we go.
Okay. And years future, is this, okay, let me back up. Is this in addition, I'm sorry, I may have zoned out there a little bit when you first spoke. Is this in addition to just overflow when we have, or this is a result of that bill?
Yeah. So
would you mind giving just a little bit of background on the bill?
So SB 48 was passed in Oregon, and it's a no bail for people that come into custody. So around the state, they hired what they're called release assistance officers, and they do an evaluation to find out if we need to hold somebody or if they can be released under certain criteria. In that bill, it was basically assigned to each district. They would have to come up with their own policy on those release criteria. What we're seeing across the state as the jail commanders is it was initially presented to us as, trying to create more equality for people that couldn't afford to post bail. But what we're seeing with the bill and the policies put out by the court is we're actually holding more people in custody upon initial arrest. And what they're doing is they then have to go to arraignment, and then the judge can either release them on their own recognizance, they can do a release agreement with conditions, or they can assign a bail amount. But they have to actually go in front of a judge to have those bails set. So people that were coming into custody, prior, we had a bail schedule that was set by the circuit court and the judge. And we could look on that and say, okay, you came in for this crime, this is your set bail amount, and people had the option to bail out. Now they don't have that option. So we're seeing more people when they come into custody being held on that initial arrest. So in talking, kind of planning out the team where, between the courts, Grant County and Harney County, we had lots of meetings prior to this going into effect. And that was kind of one of the things that we just talked about. Grant County has a larger facility. They have a smaller facility. So if the need ever arose, that there would be a contract in place. Initially, the contract had like they wanted a designated bail amount. I spoke with Grant County, and it's on an as needed basis. So we wouldn't be paying them anything, but if we called and said, we're full, we don't have anybody that meets the criteria to be placed on house arrest, or we don't have anybody that we can be releasing on a matrix system, or we don't like kind of the matrix setup right now, that we have that option available and there's already a contract in place.
Would this also cover the ability, if you were to have an inmate that you didn't feel was appropriate for this jail or setting, that this contract could also be utilized to house them elsewhere in Grant County under that?
Yes. So currently we came across this situation. We have a pretty violent individual in custody right now. And we've reached out to several different facilities to house him, and we have received no from every single facility. So in the contract, they could house for us, and they have in the past just on a verbal agreement, and they're willing to do so, but they have the option. So like in the situation that we're currently in, where we have somebody that's really too violent to be in this facility, they don't want to take on that individual. So they have turned down that request. So it's kind of a
circumstantial.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Can you comment on whether all this bail policy, how it affects public safety, if it does?
We're seeing more people being held, and that initial hold, more people are being held. So I would say from a public safety standpoint, it's better. Just because we're seeing more initial holding, but I guess other than that, typically and there's other options too. So if somebody comes into custody and they're initially held, if the DA's office gets the probable cause affidavit and they choose to not file charges that day in custody, then the person gets released per the DA without even going through that process. Mm. And so with the release assistance officer, and then if it does go forward and the release assistance officer decides to make that release decision, then they're effectively almost operating as a probation officer, where they're making sure that they're checking in and they're kind of meeting what their criteria is.
They're acting as, but then they don't intersect with Lottie's world.
No,
they just acting in a similar manner.
Unless they're already
okay.
Yeah. So they're making sure that they're staying in touch with courts, that their addresses and telephone numbers are staying current. If there's anything that they have to do, that they're staying on top of their equipments and those types of things. And so,
thank you.
Yeah.
So, did you provide this to me a while back? I don't remember.
Yes, and legal counsel has received approval because we have the same legal as Grant County.
Okay.
And so they received approval for both Harney and Grant County to review the contract for both parties, and that's his final.
Okay.
And then you reviewed it, and we made a couple changes because they had the actual a blank line where they wanted a designated number. And so I got with Dominic, and he removed that.
I remember now. You had sent it directly to Dominic yourself, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I was looking through my emails to try and see if I had sent it to him for review, and I couldn't find it. So having that in mind, the signature page has all three of our signatures on it. It's been reviewed by county council. I'd make a motion that we enter into intergovernmental agreement between Grant County and Harney County for terms just set forth. Grant County will provide jail space to Harney County adults in custody. Therefore, in consideration of the mutual agreement herein and pursuant to their authority under ORS 169.053 and ORS 190.010 and limitations therein, Grant County and Hart County agreed as follows. And basically, I mean, you can read this over real quick, like if you want, but it's $60 a day.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And then also in the past, we've never had an IGA with Grant County, as far as I know, for jail beds. But we work very well with each other.
I saw one some years back.
It might have been maybe before I got here. But you know, Grant County does call us too and ask for us to take some of their inmates. So we work pretty well. Sometimes because we know that it's a financial burden for both counties, sometimes we'll do a 1-for-1 switch. So that way we don't charge each other. And so there's options, but just to have something. And then in the future, we may want to look at doing one for Harney, to where we have that in writing to charge Grant as well. So
I'd make a second for that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to enter into intergovernmental agreement with Grant and Harney County, between Grant County and Harney County, for the housing of overflow inmates. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. And opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
thank you, Pam.
And we shall
No, Lobby's on here next.
so then after we sign this, we get it back to you and you'll get it up to Grant County? Okay. And then when it's all signed, get us a completed copy back that we can put in, that we can record.
Okay, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'm gonna hopefully make this really quick. So as you guys may remember, our funding comes from the state, and we have to prepare a biennial plan for the biennium that first gets approved and voted on by LIPSIC, which they accepted and approved to move forward with it just this Monday of this week. So the next step is to present it to you guys as county court for final approval, and Judge Hart will later sign the IGA for this. So overall, the plan is essentially the same as it has been in years past. We did, just in budget preparation for knowing that we were going to have a huge reduction, we did lower some of the funding for things like employment support. We lowered in some other areas to try to offset. So I'm really confident with this proposal that we'll be able to continue to offer close to the same level of service with only small reductions in our same staffing, which let me tell you, it was a huge feat to get to that. It took several days to just get the numbers just right, make sure that we could continue to operate as we are, continue to operate with our housing, provide treatment services. And so I hope that you guys will agree to support the plan.
And you presented it at the LIPSIC,
with
local public safety coordinating council, and they voted for you to bring it.
Yes,
They endorsed it.
They endorsed it.
Yes.
and I did submit a letter because I am also the LIPSIC chair. I abstained from voting, but did submit a letter on behalf of LIPSIC, essentially stating such.
So the agreement itself, I received the other day, and I forwarded it on to county council for his review. And he had some concerns about some language. And he wanted to be put in contact with the state's attorney.
And I did reach out to them yesterday after our discussion. I just haven't heard back yet.
Okay. And once attorneys once they talk and understand why maybe the language is there, or if it does actually need to be changed or whatever, then I'll get that. And again, that's within the bounds of me being able to sign it, really, if you guys are okay with that. Yeah. I don't know if we've ever had that conversation or not. Some of this stuff is IGAs that are within the policy of the procurement policy. Some of my sign and move on. We put it in for review.
At least, I mean, that's fine it's
I think
nice to hear about
public
these things
record,
that
you know, that way.
oftentimes we never heard about stuff like that, and it's helpful.
And I do think in the past that we, in a similar fashion, I think we did bring the plan to county court, but
Yeah,
then county court agreed that, you know, a head
Yeah.
commissioner could sign off on it at a later date, so.
Just curious, Judge, do you recall what the language that is going to be discussed amongst the attorneys? Do you remember what the nature of the topic was or the aspect of it?
No.
Okay.
Legalese.
I understand.
I can pull up his email if you'd like.
Fine.
I'm fine, but
No, I just
On the next
I like
one,
you know I just like
okay.
main topics. I don't really just wondered if it was
It had
some that surprised.
it
me for
had
some reason.
some topic to do with indemnification, wasn't it? Isn't that what it was? Yeah. So
And basically in kind of non-legalese terms, essentially the IGA is saying, hey, we are going to, you know, we're agreeing to certain things, we're agreeing to follow their certain OARs, but also we're agreeing to follow our biennial plan and follow how we say we're going to spend the money. And then the indemnification piece is kind of before else. So if we don't follow through, we lose the funding, we're put, you know, stuff like that.
Okay.
So so
and
absolutely.
he had some concerns in that indemnification portion of it too, as in regards to the contractors about and contractors that may be entered their contracts that may be entered into,
Yeah,
and the
there's something
indemnification of those contracts. Yeah.
with that. And we don't have any contractors, I guess, other than janitorial would be probably the only thing that falls under that. So
Okay. So
Thank
so
you.
anyway, he wanted to have conversation, maybe understand where they were coming from, or if he still felt that it needed to be changed, propose some changes. So at this time, then, do we need to make a motion or adopt your plan then? Then I will make a motion that based on Lipsick's review and theirs, and then our conversation, and trusting in the good work that you do all the time, we'll make a motion that we adopt what's the title of it? The Harney County 2023-2025 Biennial Plan. Community Corrections Biennial Plan.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt the 2023-2025 Biennial Community Corrections Plan. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? And hearing none, motion carries.
Great, thank you.
thank you.
Hey, Lottie,
Yes.
so the county court is, you know, we'll figure out what day to make trips to site visits, and we may want to look at some of the housing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Judge will be in charge.
Yes, Judge Hart and I had a conversation about that
It was a couple weeks ago, but we ran longer than.
And we only have one resident right now, so it would be a good time anytime between now and January, when we might get a couple more residents. The one unit though that is vacant, there was some pretty significant damage on that I have. Chad's hopefully going to be working to repair. But still, I mean, it would be great to have you guys down there to do a walkthrough. And kind of a last note on the budget, one of the things we held off on was taking care of our landscaping because the weeds are out of control. And we are planning to do this with rockscape, like zero maintenance rockscape. And so I put that on hold, but with this budget, I'm confident now we can move forward with that. So I will hopefully be getting that taken care of here soon.
We have new improved projector and Zoom and microphones downstairs. So maybe it's just my request, and that something came up where I couldn't then come in for the meeting. Possibly Zoom.
Yeah, we could definitely try that. The last a few times we did that, we had some pretty significant technical issues. But if there's upgrades and things change downstairs, maybe
There are. I used it for meeting right after it got set up, and it was
okay.
So, it's the same equipment that we have in here now.
Oh, great. Yeah, because
it's a major improvement.
Before that, it was just a headache every time, taking 20+ minutes to get it figured out. So absolutely.
Yeah, no, thanks. Just see if there was a reason not to, but
so let's for that purpose, because it's easier if an existing or a pre-scheduled meeting is in Zoom, is already set up. We'll work with Jeremy with IT to see about creating a reoccurring, maybe in all categories type of a, because we have one, like if you look at our Zoom in here, we have county court, move the Oregon border. We could create another one for other county meetings or something like that. That gives us a standing Zoom web address that we can put out to people to attend, or those parties, those stakeholders that might want to attend that way, whatever. So
because you can always go in and edit the date. So like you kind of just preset something, and then as it gets closer and you nail down the date, you can just go in and edit
that would be great.
the dates.
Versus having to set it up each time. So.
Yeah. But see that, and that's what I'm saying.
You can make it recurring.
Yeah, and it reduces the amount of setup when you're first trying to get logged in and everything. Makes it a lot easier.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you guys.
You bet. Okay. Next item, which that item I didn't really get a chance to read off, but that was Correction Department. Lottie Presley present overall for biennial plan. Moving on, next item is a proposed quit claim deed. Wyatt Baum, R.E. Hammond versus Harney County. So we asked Assessor Zabala come in and give us a little history on this, a little background and whatnot.
I assume we know nothing because I really don't.
Going back, the county went on computers in 1984. They also contracted with the Department of Revenue to do the mapping needs. And that was done over a 2-year period where they got everything up and going. That was from 84 to 86. Then they continued to do our mapping until we got set up with the GIS. Then we took it back over. In that time frame, out in the city of Lon, we also had to contend with the aftermath of the flood. And the county had foreclosed on some pieces of property, and they were subsequently purchased by Robert Moorhead. He also purchased from School District 18-2, which was the Lon School District. Because of the flood, they merged together. When the Department of Revenue set up that area, some of that was incomplete data because there was nothing that showed the difference for the vesting between the Lon School District and the Crane. That is with their school districts and their offices. We just did not have that available, I'm assuming, because I wasn't here at that time. Also, there were some pieces that were included that the Department of Revenue had assigned to the county that the county actually did not have title to from foreclosure. When Mr. Moorhead purchased this property, he requested that the previous assessor, Gina Pugh, pull everything together so that he would have one tax lot as opposed to 27. So it was sent off to mapping, and that was done in 1989. And then the problem being there was some parcels mixed in there between School District 18, county. We didn't have clear ownership on. When those got combined, then Mr. Moorhead paid the taxes for years, never a question. Significantly, what I could find out from the title search that I did, which also matched what AmeriTitle had provided to Heyman's, was that we had reserved all the mineral rights. However, we did not have clear title to some of the surface lots. And so this suit was done so that way the county can clear their name off. In essence, we're proposed quit claiming for the rights to the land, but retaining the mineral rights still. So this would clear the title for them for subsequent transference of title or
to be able to obtain title insurance. And these are the heirs of Robert Moorhead. And so I concluded the exact same thing that the title office had, and that the heir occurred because of those things pulling together. So that's what I determined and found out.
So Moorhead is no longer in.
No, he's deceased and has been for several years.
And so when it says Riot on R.A. Hanman,
that's, I believe,
those are the
heirs,
parties that are the heirs of Moorhead.
Yes, of Mr. Moorhead. And so it looks like they're just trying to do their diligence to get a clear title without any clouds on the title, so that if they choose to sell, they can issue a warranty deed to someone else, or if they're going to finance, this clears the title for them to be able to obtain that. I'm not sure what their directive is, but it is the right thing to do for us to clear everything up.
And then in review by council, this was what was recommended to take place.
Yes, and I suggested this to Dominic, and he concurred with me on that this would be the best thing, so that we could still retain the mineral rights, but clear the title for them.
You looked over carefully any of the numbers, and
I went back through the patents forward from the town site of Lawn, being recorded, and then breaking it out from there and going through the foreclosure deeds. So yeah, and it took me about a week to pull everything together on it.
What is the status of District 18 if some of those lands
It was merged.
It was
with the Crane
merged with the
District.
Crane. Okay.
Yeah. They're part of the Union High School, but their individual elementary school merged in with Crane. And I'm assuming that it was because of the flood status out there.
Yeah, that is no longer inhabitable for set purposes.
That they didn't break out. It's kind of like over the years, sod house, or not sod house, but one of the other school districts out there, 33 or 32 to merged in with the South Harney district. And so that would be
Andrews?
Fields. Andrews also merged in with Fields area and that. And so there's just where
they used to be all separate little,
and they've gone
entities.
into the elementary, but they're still part of the Union High School out there in Britain.
I just read it on it. Thank you.
So I'm assuming those school districts will never come back.
Just for information, there must have been a transaction somewhere because Bob Moorhead had converted the old school into his
right, and that was from School District 18, which is no longer in existence. And so it was merged in, and that would be with the school district's records, or it should be historically through there.
That you explained that very well. All of
Yeah.
it. Yeah, so it makes sense to me.
Sometimes
as long as the numbers are correct,
things don't play out the way that they should, and this is our way of correcting it.
Right. Yeah, appreciate it.
Well, I move to approve the quick claim deed as presented.
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the quit claim deed as presented and described by assessor. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Do you have a notary in your office?
Yes.
I would assume we need to sign this in front of a notary.
Susan is a notary. Would you like me to have her come up with?
If she could.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Would you come right before 12?
Yeah, right before 12. Let's get through the next. We're running behind, so let's get through the next thing.
Thank you, Karen.
Learned a little history.
Yeah, that's a convoluted.
Next item on the agenda is an HR update from our HR specialist, director, what?
Extraordinary.
Yeah, extraordinaire.
Best friend.
Deanna
Go there. So you guys have probably seen the posters for the PERS that I sent out. So talked PERS into coming for 2 days, and they're going to have 2 different classes for tier 1 and tier 2 members, and then 2 different classes for the officer piece of it. And they're also going to do some one-on-one training, talking with people one-on-one if you're going to retire, planning to retire, or thinking about retiring in the next 6 to 8 months. And I also taught Oregon Savings Growth into coming as well for anybody who wants to start saving for retirement beyond the PERS system. So Jack from Oregon Savings Growth will also be here.
Is that, I guess, in the language that I understand it in, is that deferred comp, basically? Yes. Deferred compensation, making pre-tax.
But with Oregon Savings Growth, you can also do a Roth, which is after tax. So you've got lots of options in the Oregon Savings Growth realm that you can do. So it doesn't have to be pre-tax.
Great.
And then
I'm going to show my ignorance here. Does that apply to state and federal employees, or just state employees?
Anybody who is state.
State.
I think federal has FERS rather than PERS.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that side of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've invited anybody in town that has.
Yeah, I saw it was community wide, which that's awesome.
Yeah. So I invited Grant County too, since they're close enough. I have several people that have already signed up for.
Does the tribe do PERS?
I don't think so. I think they would be.
I would think they'd have their own different system, but I just
something.
So I've also contacted CIS, and they're going to come do some law training. I had a discussion with our risk management team, and we were talking FEMLA type things, and in the discussion, we felt that it would be really important for department heads to understand the importance of letting each other know as soon as somebody says that they're going to be out. And I find that out a lot of the times on a timesheet when I see somebody's out for 10 days and I didn't know anything about it, but there's paperwork that has to be filled out. So Tamara's going to come from CIS to talk about sick leave, both of them, the ADA, workman's comp time loss, and then the paid leave Oregon time loss as well. And
which is the newly passed portion that we started budgeting for this year.
Head wrapped around.
Crazy. We'll see how that goes. Mandatory training. Judge Hart has made it mandatory for all department heads. And she's also
department heads and supervisors, because we do have a couple of supervisors out there that are not actually department heads. So.
Sure.
So what was the date?
That is October 2nd and 3rd.
I'm going
the lead law journey.
I'm going to send out. So I sent out
an email.
Yes, but I'm going to send out 2 calendar invites. I'm going to send out 2 calendar invites, and then people.
Very helpful. Yeah. I do appreciate those.
So I sent the email out, and then next I'm going to send a calendar invite out for both of those events, and people can sign up for them as it suits their schedule.
So there's 2 different date options, but they're both covering the same.
One's in the morning and one's in the afternoon. So yeah,
and then I also talked her into doing some performance evaluation training for our department heads as well while she's here, and we have everyone's attention. So that would be good. So we're going to do that. And she likes to play Stump the Lawyer, so she can ask questions that
I saw that. I thought, oh, that sounds fun.
She does that a lot on the trainings and stuff at conferences. She'll be Stump the Lawyer if there's any time left that you can ask some questions and
legal law questions.
Yeah. So on the job description task that we're trying to do, I'm going through all job descriptions right now, making sure the formatting is all exactly the same for all job descriptions, and I'm sending them out to be updated. We had talked in the past about possibly having county court
approving any significant changes to job descriptions. I don't know whether you guys all want to do that at this level, or once we get it all fixed, then any job description changes other than an and, but, and or would come to county court to be approved and changed rather than just doing it. So
that's
something you guys can think about or whatever. And
yeah, conversation we hadn't had yet. And I don't know if you're leading into it. Are you leading into our grade analysis?
Yes.
Okay.
So
I don't want to steal your thunder.
To me, they kind of tie together.
Yeah, they do.
So as soon as I get this done, then there's two different places we haven't quite made a decision as to where we're going to send all this stuff off to. But as soon as all this gets back and we've got it all together and everything's done, then everything's going to go to one of two places to get analyzed, and then they will be looking at the schedule.
What was the last year when this was kind of done previously? I know it's been a while.
We usually just do job description updates as people.
Do you have any knowledge, even if it was before your time, if there was how many years it's been since there was we hired
the last full analysis of job descriptions and grade classifications was 1998.
Okay.
There has been a couple of small updates. Didn't they send us some information on a couple of small updates that they had done? Like 2003 was the last one or something.
I think there was something because when I was a county contractor,
yes,
it was going on, but I was a contractor, so I wasn't involved in it. But that would have been about the right time frame.
Yeah,
that's what I sort of remember. Yeah, I don't.
But so that will all be done as soon as they can get everything back.
So are you looking for some more tasks? Is that why you came here today?
No, the chart wanted me to inform you of what I'm doing.
I appreciate that. It's good to know. Very good to know.
Well, as much as we've talked lately about other entities, partners, and whatnot in our community to come and brief the county court, or inviting them to come in. Departments are on that same list as well to hear from departments. So I thought it was important to have HR come and talk about the things that we've done or that we're doing. She's doing.
I think it's great to have these workshops and these trainings, and appreciate the effort to get the right people to come here to our community to do that.
Well, the guy from Oregon Savings Grove happened to be walking or driving through town and went to Ontario and was coming back by and stopped and dropped off some folders with all the stuff in it. And we were talking about PERS coming, because it's connected to PERS. And I said, hey, how would you like to come to this? Again, while we have everybody's attention at a meeting. And he said that he was actually busy. So I contacted the head guy, Jack, and he said, absolutely, he would come over. So
great.
For the community, for all PERS.
Right. Now that's
employees.
where it's nice where you're, able to make it widely available.
Thank you for the
Thank you, ma'am. Next item up is county court approval of cleaning contract. I think you're both aware that we've entered into worked on a county custodial contract. In past, while we had a lot of continuity in our past maintenance employee person that was here in the courthouse, the other facilities, library, home health, rural health clinic, those are half-time positions, and we had issues with turnover in those positions. So we bulletined for actual replacement of those positions, but at the same time we explored a custodial contract that I thought would probably bring us a lot better continuity in that service. So this is the contract, and it comes up to basically, I think it's $64,000 and some change a year is what the contract is. Again, then now per our procurement policy, that exceeds the $50,000 limit that I can enter into. But again, still, I would prefer to.
They're on board already, correct?
Yes, they are.
I was going to say, I would just like to say it never complained, but And my office never been cleaned. Basically, it was just, the trash occasionally. Well, regularly when Felix was here, but they clean. I could tell.
And so this is a company that's operating locally, but is not a local company. Is that what?
Yes,
understanding?
they're actually not. They're based out of
Springfield. It says here on the address.
Springfield, but they have had contracts here in town in the past before COVID, and then after COVID, those contracts went away for whatever reason or whatever.
Yeah,
so
they needed cleaning.
Yeah, so he had staff already. He had staff already listed and ready to go back to work, and this found a purpose for him.
And so this has been reviewed by legal counsel as well.
Yes, it was coordinated between Executive Assistant Renfro and County Counsel. I went back and forth several times to make sure everybody was good with the bits and pieces of it.
Okay, so Chad is called out specifically as the facilities manager to be the oversight for this type of contract.
And he was involved in
the
coordination of it.
Okay. That was kind of my question, is to make sure that he is, accountable that way for checking in on how that's going. And, providing, information back to us, whether it's being successfully implemented or not.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but from the very beginning in the RFP, Chad was involved in the RFP. Yeah. So when we put this out for an RFP, just as history, we had two responses to it, and based on the dollar amounts, obviously, that were bid, and the experience of this contractor and availability already of having worked, this was the best choice.
And you said that this will cover all county facilities, and
with the exception of the road department, because they already have a custodial person for
providing their services.
Yeah. But we had the contractor look at it so that when that individual decides to retire, no longer wants to perform those services, that this entity could pick up that portion of it as well.
So there's latitude within this contract to expand the services.
It was bid two ways: bid with the road department and bid without the road department. So they know at some point the road department could come.
And then, when we visited Public Health RHC, these services will also be provided to that facility. But so how will the billing work? Obviously they have their own funding available for things. And so at the county level, when we look at
this point right now, because
implementing this, financially, I'm just kind of wondering how you're planning on handling that.
So at this point right now, because it came about after the budget, obviously, we took the personal and actually there's a resolution to follow this here in a second that will address part of that, but I mean, we can wrap it in together in the same discussion. So what I did was I took the personal services salaries for Felix, other FTEs, the two FTEs, part-time, half-time FTEs, and we won't take it out of it because it's still part of general fund, but the library has $2,000 in there, so that they will get devoted to this. And then I took $25,000 from contingency funds to make up. It'll give us $65,000, and the full amount is 64 and some change on this contract for this year. Next year, we'll look at budgeting in with RHC and home health hospice and everything as an expenditure line item in their budgets to help cover some of that expense next year. But it wasn't there this year, so it's hard to. It wasn't appropriate. It wasn't appropriated. So short of doing a supplemental budget,
they're an outside fund.
Yeah. So short of doing a supplemental budget, this was the easiest way to take care of it this way. A lot of that comes out in the wash anyway. So.
It does. So that's why I was just kind of wondering what the train of thought was. That way I'm comfortable with that. Are you?
I'm comfortable, yes.
Okay. So initially then, or up first, is the contract itself. And I'll entertain a motion to approve the contract.
I make a motion to approve the contract for Harney County Service Contract number 2023-06 with David Keeling. I second.
Motion's been made to approve Harney County Services contract number 2023-06 with
It's triple R janitorial.
Is that the name? It's called out somewhere in here, but I didn't notice it. Oh, right there. Sorry.
Triple R Investment LLC, doing business as Triple R Janitorial and Harney County for janitorial custodial services. Any further discussion? And hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? And hearing none, motion carries. It's what is 16th?
Yep, sure.
How is August? August 2023.
Let's see if you want.
Yeah, can we do this? Let's do one resolution real quick. Like we'll get it done here real quickly. So we've already discussed basically where the funds are coming from for this, and it's resolution. We created a contracting line in facility maintenance, general fund, facility maintenance, and these funds are being moved within general fund and internal. So it's in the matter of intra-fund transfer of appropriations within categories for general fund 101. And then, and again, they're coming, the two FTEs are within the same department and just being moved from personal services to materials. And
they're no longer considered an FTE now because they're contract. So, you know, even those associated benefits with those FTEs are no longer, part of the bigger scheme.
So it'll equate to, and when this is done, because it's general fund, it's all personal services, not just for that department.
Right. Yeah.
Well, but it's general fund. It's all when you count up like for road department, their personal services are under their fund. In general fund, we have multiple departments that have personal services and materials and supplies, but at the bottom of the fund, it all totals together.
Right.
So the difference will be a decrease of $38,100 in personal services, and a decrease in $25,000 in contingency funds within the general fund, for a materials and supplies increase of $63,100, and then the $2,000 that's already in general fund in the library. It makes up the balance of it. But this is where the funds are being moved from and to. So I would entertain a motion to, in the matter of an intra-fund transfer of appropriations within categories for General Fund 101, Resolution 2023-20.
I'll second. I'll entertain a motion. Sorry. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-20 in the matter of interfund transfer of appropriation within categories for General Fund 101. Personnel services decrease $38,100, contingency decrease of $25,000, and a materials and supplies increase of $63,100.
I second.
And a motion's been made and seconded in the matter of approving Resolution 2023-20 in the matter of an intra-fund transfer of appropriations within categories for General Fund 101 as read. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? And hearing none, motion carries. All right, and as we sign that, we have a quit claim deed that we need to have notarized, and we just sign it in your presence, and then what do you need from us?
If it's blood, it's kind of
And it looks like it has a notary for each signature.
Looks like it, yeah. Okay. Well, I know
So if we just
ask for your ID.
So if we sign it in front of you, then you can take it, do what you need to do with it. What's the top line? Is the top line for a printed?
Probably.
My assumption.
Probably the second line is printed.
Dated this 16th day of August. And we'll give it to you and you can do your notary part of it after lunch or whatever. And go to DAGs to be recorded, or
I'll just give it to you guys and then you can do.
Well, yeah, I know, but I'm just I think afterward.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So then
Then I'll notarize each one of your signatures. There, I'll put your name. I'll put Bill's name.
okay,
Yeah.
so each one.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. What a summary.
You guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And then the last item. Well, first off, it's 12:07. Do you guys want to work through, or you want to come back? We have one item left, and then general deliberation and.
Fine, whatever you want.
You don't, no, okay. I'd be comfortable with just proceeding.
Okay. So then order number 2023-19 in the matter of intent to initiate formation of an ORS 450.600 joint water and sanitary authority and setting a public hearing date at 11:45. Public hearing date 11:45. Wow, that's just
That's just
okay.
Sorry.
AM/PM. So after review by County Council and the Crane School District Council, they requested that the county, by order, initiate the process of creating an ORS 450-600 joint water and sanitary authority and setting a public hearing date. But they requested the county do this by order. Two ways of doing it is one is by a county order or by petition of the people that would be affected. I quite frankly have asked the question a couple times on why it came as an order instead of a petition from the people in Crane. And it would only be those people. A petition would be, I think, a certain percentage. That is 10% of affected people.
I'm not aware of them.
Yeah, but it would be just those people within the boundary of this proposed district. I don't know why they didn't go that route to initiate the process. County Council asked the question, and we asked the question, and it's never been answered as to why it came this route versus a petition. My only concern on this, and the County Council's concern, but I expressed it initially on too, was that by the county doing this and initiating this process under an order, it could be perceived that this is the desire. I mean, I'm not saying it's not the desire of the county court, but it could be perceived that this is the sole desire of the county court. And what kind of liability does that put back on the county court later on in operational costs? This is not going to come at this time anyway. It's not going to come with any taxes. So the voters, there's no need for it to go to the voters of Crane or in that district for a taxation to approve taxes on it. And what they're proposing, they have a grant from Biz Oregon for the construction of it. I think it's $3.5 million for the construction, the initial construction, and they're proposing then to operate it based on user fees by the people out.
They being the board?
Yes, this district. They being the district. So this process, the way I'm understanding it and talking with county council, this order right here indicates our intent to start the process. The next step is it has to be advertised in the paper twice and for a period of over 30 days, not to exceed 50 days. And then between that 30 and 50 days is when the hearing has to be held.
Is there an opportunity in the minutes, the email that Dominic's provided us with those details, that we could just have or put that into the minutes, those, like say, that specific language that he's provided us that has that, it has the timeline and the steps and everything. If we could, just allow her to just copy and paste that into the minutes, just so as people look at
I don't have it,
that they could have a very clear definition of that proposed.
But the order states, whereas the unincorporated community of Crane in Harney County is experiencing domestic water supply stress as the result of declining groundwater levels, and whereas many existing residences in Crane rely on on-site water treatment systems, some of which are located within less than 100 feet of potable wells. Back up. Many existing residences in Crane rely on on-site wastewater treatment systems, some of which are located within less than 100 feet of potable wells. So you have waste
potential interaction.
Yeah.
Is
whereas the availability of suitable property to build new residents in Crane is restricted due to the offsets required between wells and on-site water waste treatment systems. And whereas the Harney County Court finds that a community-wide water and sewer system is likely necessary to protect public health and safety and welfare in Crane. And whereas the Crane Union School District, Crane Union School District, and thank you. School District has been awarded a grant from the state of Oregon as a legislative member in identified ARPA, Coronavirus State Fiscal Relief Fund funded project, included in Section 24 of House Bill 5006, 2021, in the amount of $3.2 million for the construction of the Crane Community Water and Sewer System. And whereas ORS Chapter 450.600 allows for the establishment of a joint water and sanitary authority to supply water and sanitary services. And whereas under ORS Chapter 198 and 450.600, the court may initiate formation of a joint water and sanitary authority to supply water and sanitary service by adoption of an order addressing its intent to do so. Now, therefore, the County Court of Harney County, Oregon hereby orders as follows. Findings. The above stated findings and those contained in this order number 2023-19, this order are hereby adopted. Initiation. By adoption of this order, the county declares its intention to initiate the formation of a joint water and sanitary authority for purposes of providing water supply and sanitary services to the unincorporated community of Crane pursuant to ORS .835 and ORS 450.600. The legal name of the authority will be Crane Valley Water and Sanitary Authority. The boundary of the authority shall be as shown in Exhibit A attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference. As required by law, the court will conduct a public hearing on this proposal at which all interested parties may appear and be heard. Powers of authority. An authority established under ORS 450.600 to 450.989 shall be governed by an elected board of directors. ORS 450.635. The general powers of authority include the powers to compel all residents and property owners within the authority's boundaries to connect their houses and structures requiring sewage disposal with adjacent sewers within the authority. ORS 450.710, paragraph 1, ORS 450.815, paragraph 8. To the extent not covered by the grant from the state of Oregon described above, the cost of constructing the authority's sewage disposal and or drainage systems shall be borne by the area directly benefited by those systems and may, at the discretion of the board, be borne through assessments against the benefited property, sewer connection charges, sewer service charges, or biannual levies of taxes if general obligation bonds are to be issued and sold to finance construction or by any combination of these methods. ORS 450.840, paragraph 1, ORS 450.855, paragraph 3. Thereafter, operations and maintenance costs shall be borne by the area directly benefited through sewer service charges, ORS 450.840, paragraph 2, ORS 450.880. Public hearing. The above referenced public hearing will be held on September 20th, 2023. And I chose this, it's a county court day, and my intent or my idea was that we have our regular county court session, and then we will recess and then re-adjourn in Crane.
That's for 12.
And which was the day? The 20th?
September 20th.
And is this going to be during the day or at night? Or
I would propose that we re-adjourn at, say, 6 o'clock in the evening in Crane.
So that's the day I'm driving to Klamath Falls. How is it? You can hold it without me.
It's.
I was not planning on going to Klamath.
Either. No, I think I'm the only one. I was going to go after county court, but I don't.
It's a public hearing. I think we could do. You know, we could do that part of it. Well, we still have a quorum, and,
yeah,
and it's public hearing. It's to hear people and educate people and make sure that they're. I want to hear their feedback. I want to make sure everybody's.
Someone recording.
So I can play
it back.
Yeah.
Just
we have technology down there that we can.
Yes, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. You know, and even
make it
yeah, we could. I mean, it may, depending on if they have audio visual equipment to plug into. But even if they didn't, we could just record it from the laptop.
Well, we have our own stuff that we can keep down there, but I believe Eric has quite a bit of technology set up in their boardroom.
And Commissioner Sherman, not that you necessarily would know, but you might, would that be a decent day for the community of Crane? Have you have any idea?
You know, I don't know. That would be sports prohibiting day. Potentially, I think a Wednesday is a better day than later in the week or something. Wednesdays tend to work better for most people just because there doesn't tend to be any activities, but I could certainly double check and make sure that there isn't anything. That's a no at this point. Okay. I do think a little bit later in September works fairly well.
I would say we could amend the date if we had to.
I'm comfortable
with that date. A question on the actual map. I mean, where's the school? Should be off over here somewhere. Where's the road driving to Crane? Is this it?
Well, that's a kid's off.
So is that?
It
Well, let me
doesn't look
think.
like
North.
it doesn't look like a lot of properties.
No, it's
And
really
and of course
Where's the north?
I got it.
Or north this way.
The
so the school
fees.
should be
the fees
right
that
there.
would need to be charged,
Yeah,
will that even cover any?
that's the door
operation of it? That's
cafeteria.
This is the gym and stuff.
It certainly sounds like a good idea if it can be afforded. Playground.
Bus area.
Okay.
High school.
Okay, so it goes
Track.
put out this
Yeah,
way.
once you see the track, it's a little easier to orient out from the track.
Okay, yeah. But still, it's not a lot of properties.
No, and I've kicked an email to Jessie Barnes as well. She's brought us some information that she's done in other areas with similar concerns with sewer and groundwater interactions. And I've actually asked her to be present at all these meetings just to be informed and be able to also, a member of the public has a question that would be kind of in her wheelhouse, that she would be able to answer that. And so I haven't got a response from her yet, but I will follow up with her just saying, this really does intersect with her world. Do you know the potential of this is something that Matt Hawley provided for the court. He wanted to make sure that there were draft copies available for the public to review. And so these are copies that he's made available to us, that the prospective board that he has worked with in that community has, approved at this point. They're hoping to become a formal board through this process, but there is a lot of community support as of yet to see this work move forward. The USGS study does call out that area as an area of concern with groundwater. And so I do feel like this opportunity that's been given to the community of Crane is a needed one. And it's very timely for multiple reasons. And the fact that the school district does have a well that is at a much further depth than most domestic wells that can be utilized for this purpose, that additional well drilling wouldn't have to occur and those kind of costs occur. And that is, kind of a ideal situation for that community to benefit.
The rest of the community will basically piggyback off of the school district's well and sanitary facilities.
Right. And, there's been a lot of work done, but, these are what he provided to me the other day. And so I'm sharing that with you, but have it available if anyone comes up here to make sure that they can either check them out or, I don't know, what would work best. I hate for them to have to sit here and read through the whole thing, but if there was an opportunity to at least maybe keep one copy, but if somebody wanted to take one and kind of check it out, we can maybe make that happen.
So,
I think once I read this, I'll be able to maybe answer this question, but obviously, if the funds are there to do it, create the board, gets implemented, the operational costs to maintain it, to, keep it going. Would the number of properties, users, is that sufficient to provide the revenue to sustain the operation? Because I obviously, knowing our budget outlook at the moment, what would that look like? I mean, would we have the responsibility since they're an unincorporated?
I believe it called out in the ORS. The responsibility directly relies within this body.
Would there be a risk that the people couldn't afford to pay the fees they need to pay to keep it going? Those that live there and within the boundary, the users,
Well, I think
I just wouldn't want. I mean, just because I can see.
Well, I think the larger discussion becomes and this is where I believe, Jesse's expertise would also lend to this conversation of what's out there to help support communities that are in these situations where you really cannot continue with the septic groundwater interaction. It's not really an option.
It's not an option not to address it.
It's not
to address it. And so, I'd be curious to know what she understands about what kind of support's out there for these types of systems, as well as, other grants that might be available to these small communities to help with sustainability over time, because I totally agree. It's one of those you don't want to set them up not for a successful future. I do believe, though, with the implementation of the water and wastewater district in that area, that a lot of those parcels that could not be developed,
I was going to mention
then become developable, and so it actually has a lot of potential to be able to make those properties part of our larger, housing need shortage. I mean, even the amount of teachers in the area and everything else, currently have a real struggle just finding enough housing. And so there's a lot of already tax lots available that just really don't, you can't put a septic and everything in that.
So it's prohibitive for development
in its current state.
And I
think that becomes our duty to not try to create any obstacles for that to occur.
And that would help with that situation. The things that I want to make sure that the people of Crane and the people that are affected by this are on board with is the statements in this order of being able to be compelled to hook up to the system and compelled to pay user fees and compelled potentially down the road there may have to be bonds passed or taxes levied. That the people are okay with that.
Right. No, it's going to have to be an internal, from the boundary, within that internal boundary of support for that. And that's why I think the hearings, will demonstrate whether that exists.
Can we send out personally postcards to those residences so that they will definitely know they ought to be there if they can?
And we can do that. I believe we should be able to probably get either through the assessor's office or GIS, be able to get
pull that tax lot
area and put some notice at the post office with Anderson Valley Supply and just places.
Well, and there's actually been some folks that when they saw the original map said, I would like my property included in this boundary. And so that was an option. Some property owners did ask to be included.
Well, but I thought the initial, so they have the terminology, but they have a boundary, a community boundary already established. And they tried to incorporate some of those that were outside of that because they didn't want to have to go.
They didn't get to incorporate everybody that asked, but there were, I think, a couple.
Well, I thought they had to go back and take them out because they went within that already pre-established boundary.
Well, that could be. I don't know. Yeah, because you're right. When GIS took a look at it, that's maybe what they
realized that some of those properties were outside of the pre-existing boundary and short of.
And so once the district's created, they could maybe work internally to expand that boundary after the initial.
So part of just quickly what'll happen next is after the initial hearing, then we have to re-advertise. There's some planning department review that has to take place, and we'll have to re-advertise. And if the court approves the district's formation, the court will adopt another order identifying the name and boundaries of the proposed district and setting a final hearing date between 20 to 50 days from the date of the order. And at that time, that final order will also appoint the initial board. Because it's an elected board, but because it's outside of an election time frame, the county court will appoint those initial board members, and then they'll be up for election come the next regularly scheduled.
And will the board members have to reside within the served boundaries?
I don't know.
I would assume.
I don't know. I'll have to research that ORS.
If I was appointing someone, that would be my disposition. Having those that have a stake in the game
in a larger area, definitely. I want to just make sure.
But I know there's some initial interest, and there wasn't a sufficient amount of people that were already living there, and so I don't foresee us having a problem with that at this point in the process.
So, real quick, Barb, did you have a quick comment?
Yeah, I have a question. In the school, owns so many of the properties within Harney. Would the taxpayers be paying for those facilities? And does this grant pay for the hookups of all those houses that are owned by the school, but not for those houses that are not owned by the school?
No, the school would have to pay for those hookups. The school wouldn't be
my taxpayer.
It's a state entity.
I'm not opposed to districts like this. I just would like that. I just think that's a consideration.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious one though, in my mind, that if there's school-owned properties, then yes, the school will be paying the service fees.
That grant would pay for all the school property hookups.
It doesn't state that. It states that the grant is to hook up or to create the ability to hook up. Your actual hookup fees are then
the first page.
By whoever hooks up,
established by that district.
Yeah, but the initial 3.2 million isn't paid for each thing to hook up.
So then, and my reaction is, not having heard this before, and not is that by petition. It seems to me like they might have contacted all the people within this area before.
This was a few years ago when they first started.
Yeah,
the petition sounds like a good idea.
Representative Owens had done a lot of legwork, and honestly, I would be shocked if there's anyone within that boundary currently that isn't already aware. And so that's why we're going to go through the hearing process, is to ensure
it looks
that
like
those individuals, can come and discuss.
Looks like the churches. There's 3 churches in this area, and there's the post office, of course, in the school, and so I don't know if those entities, i.e., the churches, have to be. Would they just normally, whoever does their admin would already get these notices in case it matters to them? I mean, hopefully it won't. Hopefully they're all for it.
Well, I know that
I will not assume that. Depends. I mean, there's.
Well, I would say
that's why we're going to send out
this order
to each.
Initiates our intent.
Yeah.
During the hearing, if there was a lot of pushback, if there was a lot of disagreement, I'm just saying that if there was, we could stop the process. We don't have to continue with it. I want to make sure everybody's on board with this. Since it's an order that we were asked to do, not one that we took upon ourselves, I want to make sure that everybody is in agreement with this before.
That there's a positivity towards this moving forward. I think there's a necessity towards it.
I do too. I think there's a necessity.
I agree.
And so I do believe there will be positivity because people are, in a situation out there that they have no control over in the current situation. And and just like I say, from some of the discussions that Jessie has had in her job and in other areas, I think that this is a red flag, for our area with the current proximity of things that, this allows to be addressed.
Do you know
in a formal manner?
If any of the other of our unincorporated townships that have a school based there, since like all
Fields or French Glen.
Yeah. Will they have similar, might they have similar situations? I mean, Crane is more of a concentrated little town.
It's concentrated with their housing. I don't see in Riley, Diamond, 00, Druzy, any of them. They're not really in the same proximity to that many septics and domestic wells, all in that, and the schools themselves don't have that depth of well that the school currently has that allows for a little more sustainable.
Yeah, I just want to mention that these are
it's a
school-based communities now. They didn't always, but they kind of are.
One other issue that might come up in this is the way that Crane's had some of the
it's kind of like some of those boundary later offset the structures aren't necessarily within
true to the tax laws.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've had some of that come before the court, you know, asking for, well, there's a building over this road,
Right.
you know, and having the court, you know, evaluate that situation on individual instances. And so we've dealt with some of that already too.
I wish there was a way to
Yeah, once it's been built on, it's a little awkward. But I think the more formal that, you know, the actual community becomes with some of this type of organizational matter, that less of that I can see occurring, just because it makes people more aware of tax laws, of, you know, easements, of all those things that maybe in the past haven't been evaluated as much. And so I think that this will bring some more awareness of what's on the landscape and what's actually designated.
So,
So we need a motion at this point.
yes, to
I move
order.
to approve order number 2023-19 in the matter of the intent to initiate formation of an ORS 450.600 joint water and sanitation authority, and setting a public hearing date for September 20th in the community of Crane.
I second.
Motion has been made to approve order number 2023-19 in the matter of the intent to initiate formation of an ORS 450.600 joint water and sanitary authority, and setting a public hearing date. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. So I will get that language out of that email for the process.
And if
just so that people can see what we're doing next.
I've had conversations with the county clerk, and if he were to be able to also provide that next actual date for an election, I know that he has it in mind already, just so that could be captured too, of when the actual election could go out.
Yeah,
as a formal election.
I talked to him about that too.
I can't quite recall what he told me, but I know that he
I think by the time this is taken care of, that it's going to be basically in the
or was he saying November 2024?
No, it would be May. At a minimum it'd be May, or at the latest it would be May. But I'm trying to think if he said there was if there was another opportunity earlier in the year, like in February or something.
I can't recall.
I can't either.
Just long.
Yeah. But at a minimum,
I think he's aware of a potential election date. So if that could be captured, just as people read through,
based on these timelines.
Yeah, based on these current timelines, this is what we're kind of setting for, just so folks are aware.
I wonder if, so this is something that was provided to the school district?
So the school district has worked with Anderson Perry to come up with this draft.
We have this on our website posted, so
we can ask for a digital copy of it.
That would just help a lot. A lot of people do look online.
Yeah, so I can,
that'd be awesome.
I can arrange that. But it is nice to have hard copies for folks to look at. I'd be better with hard copy myself.
Of which I would like to check out this copy, because I'm going to be down a few days and I will have some time to look at it. And I'll bring it back to you today.
Some light reading
compared to some stuff.
Well,
it looks like it's not.
This order is recorded. If we can make sure to communicate with the legal counsel for the other party.
And then it has a place for you to record the votes.
Well, and there is this other copy that obviously I'd like this one
here for folks to look at, but one that could be, I'll bring this back by Tuesday and
All right, moving on then. That takes care of new business. And water notices. We have any water notices?
There's none.
No water notices this week. Correspondence. Commissioner Doro had a letter or NACO appointment.
I just thought might as well just put it in the record. I have been appointing, I and others, to be the president of NACO appoints people who are interested, the Rural Action Caucus and the Veterans and Military Services Committee. So I'm on those for this next year. And then I was surprised to see that they've also put me on the, I went, what? I think I replied for that one. Justice and Public Safety Steering Committee. I will accept that as well, but that's the one occasionally when I have to have the Zoom meeting because they are issues that I can help inform us of. And once in a while I pipe up, but most of the time it's just more for information. So
was that under a different nomination letter?
Yeah, this is another one she could put in the record. It's just that I've been reappointed or, for a year to those committees. So you all know as well.
So quick question. I know NACO was working on this, as far as I was aware, he brought up the jail inmate.
Medicaid inmate exclusion policy.
Has that had any progress? I know that it had some movement, but
it had some progress, but they gave the states the option, and Oregon does not support it at the state level. So that really upsets me. That would help people.
Oh yeah.
How can you say you want mental health and services and homelessness, all these things you want to address, and there's a little segment of the population where those things intersect with, and why take that away from them while they're in jail? They could get some help. So that's to be worked on at the state level at this point, but there's always more to.
Has there ever been a legislative concept actually developed?
No, I remember.
I'll
ask. I don't.
Specific to it.
I don't know anymore. If there's probably not a current one.
Well, and if not, that's something that, before fall we need to work on getting something that for Oregon.
Okay.
Because I think that's one thing where it intersects so much at the county level where we have symmetry care and these other things, but because of this one nuance,
absolutely,
we're just hamstrung, and that's unless within our county budget we can carve out funds, which we don't just have, and just here these folks
I just see, I mean, that situation. On the one hand, the political party that is the majority that tends to want healthcare for all, right? Well, it's then only taken away from these people that you have the power to make that be now, and it would move the needle a little bit in lives.
I agree.
Yeah, I hear you. Good. I will look into that.
Okay, thank you.
And just there's a letter we received from the City of Burns Planning Commission. Just passing it through just for general distribution. Applicants Kyle and Krista Canyo had applied for a conditional use permit to construct 2 dwelling units on the 2nd floor of an existing 2-story commercial building in Burns.
And where is that?
Well, that's what let's see if it has an address. Township in Moraine.
340.
Oh yeah, 340, 348.
North Broadway.
Possess 2 addresses at North Broadway. I'm not sure if are they the ones that just renovated that building across from Bella Java?
I don't know that. I don't know the addresses on Broadway, but that was my thought as well. When you read it, I just thought, I wonder if it's that place, but okay, well, I'm okay with it.
I'm not going to wait in City of Burns.
Yeah,
it's good to know that.
Yeah, it's just for informational purposes. Nice. Just
yeah.
And then also received a letter from Federal Emergency Management Agency. Addressed to myself. I don't know if you guys may have received them as well. I don't know. This is to notify you of the final flood hazard determination for Harney County. Oregon, and incorporated areas in compliance with Title 44, Chapter 1, Code, et cetera, et cetera. The statutory 90-day appeal period that was identified for your community when the Department of Homeland Security
I think this might be
notice
the
proposed flood
final
hazard.
conclusion of
This
phase
is the
one.
final, yeah.
Oh, this phase one?
Yeah.
Okay.
According to the flood hazard determination for your community are considered. Accordingly, the flood hazard determinations for your community are considered final. The final notice for flood hazard determination will be published in the Federal Register as soon as possible. FIS report and firm for your community will become effective on February 8th, 2024.
This has been like a 12, 13, 14-year process.
In some ways, I wouldn't mind putting it on our next agenda just to have Director McMullen
That'd be good.
Yeah, capture a little bit more of what this means and then what the next phase means and its potential timeline, just as a little update for the public.
Did you make copies of both of these and put them in?
They're on the website.
Well, on Director McMullen's
Yes.
box. Okay, because I talked to him on the phone the other day. I just tried to keep him in the loose of plannings and stuff. Right. Yeah. So other than that, this is just for sharing of.
Okay, I thought we were already done with phase one. I didn't realize it's.
I'm hoping that's how I read it, but it doesn't.
No, I
say it the way I like to think.
Well, not the way that we kind of turned it in our other discussions. So
do you want to add it to the next agenda?
Yeah, check with Brandon and see what his availability is.
Formal presentation for him to just give us an update on the FEMA process.
Where it's at, where we're going with it.
And then, you know, as we've had landowners talk, because I actually had one this the other day in the city of Pines say, you know, I feel like my property, you know, like part of my house is out of it and part of my house is in it, you know, and just maybe reiterating what folks need to do if they're seeing stuff at their own property level, you know, and that's something they can have Brandon kind of explain in the conversation so that we remind folks that there is a process if you're seeing that, and here's how to follow that process.
If they're seeing that they're within the designated
area.
Yeah,
and if there's kind of a nuance on their specific parcel that they want to, you know, have reviewed, that there is, you know, an opportunity to have that reviewed. Because I believe they're in phase two.
Phase two incorporates more of the burn signs.
Yeah, and that's, I told them, I said, that should still be on, you know, I think there's comment that you can make in this phase two process. So, and
I might have the numbers a little wrong, but this process with a lot of work by Harney County, Mark Owens and folks like that, to nudge FEMA not to just do their, oh, we flew LiDAR, this is your map, you know, to really come and do more due diligence and to really understand our floodplain areas, etc. That resulted in, for the unincorporated areas, again, I might be wrong in the numbers, approximately 12 properties that had not been in the floodplain moved in, but about 43 that had been in it aren't in it anymore. It was a huge numerical shift in the ability of private property owners not to be in the floodplain and not have the burden and the responsibilities of that additional mandated, well, not mandated, you know, need for flood insurance and those types of things in order to get your place financed or to improve it, etc.
Yeah, it becomes a barrier really in the housing piece of FEMA. And so really until phase two is over, we're not past some of those barriers, but once phase two is complete, it'll be interesting to see the outcome of some of those barriers with insurance.
Yeah,
it's like you said, you know, everybody's in such a financial crunch right now that having that additional insurance requirement is really a burden.
It is.
Any other correspondence?
I don't have any at this state.
Next topic, scheduling, meeting schedule. We'll add the public hearing in Crane for the water sewer sanitary district.
Would we be able to move the September 6th meeting out to either the Monday or Tuesday. That is Fair Week. And the 6th is the first day of the maturity.
I could do it.
I would have a really hard time attending on that day. We weren't hosting the maturity at the ranch that day.
Sounds good to me.
So you want to move it to
5th? Yeah, I'm good either Monday or Tuesday, just boy, once the
Isn't one of those a holiday?
really too though.
the 4th is a holiday.
Yeah, Monday the 4th is good. Some people use it as a holiday, but
Most people get ready for fair.
They're very good.
Some people have hunting.
Yeah, and I don't even have, so that doesn't even hit my radar, but I think you're right.
I don't, at this point right now, I have a 911 committee meeting at 8:30 on the 5th, which usually runs about an hour. We're trying to finalize the MOU with stakeholders. So I don't have anything else that day. We could convene at 6:30 or 9:30.
That'd be fine.
I know that wasn't right as soon as it came out, but we could do the same schedule, convene at 9:30 for work session and 10 o'clock for regular session.
Sounds good. I appreciate that.
So,
of course, Tammy, did you have a lot of things already scheduled on the agenda?
No, because nobody's available.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
So it might be a light agenda anyway.
we do have.
Well, and is there anything? I mean, I'm not proposing necessarily that we skip the meeting entirely, but if the agenda really isn't fleshing out at this point.
Oh, I think there's, well, I don't know what's on the agenda. I know that in the talk of, we're eventually going to be scheduling more and more departments and partners and community things to be on our agenda for.
That just happens to be a
but
very
that's not happening that
Well,
meeting,
that's
right?
going to be kind of starting the 20th.
Well,
anybody for earlier.
So are you asking that if we really don't have that much on the agenda, would you just cancel that meeting?
That's what I'm kind of proposing for that.
Well, I'll have to look into it. Really, I'll have to look into, can we do that? I mean, we can reschedule. Can we just cancel one altogether because we're busy?
Don't know why we couldn't.
Let us know when you
get
to it, but the 5th will work for me if you
say it's
okay.
Just a very hectic week in this community,
Well, and then having that in mind, I know we just talked about on the water district thing and having a public hearing on the 20th. Do we want to reschedule the 20th if Commissioner Doro's got to travel to Klamath Falls?
No, I mean, unless you guys for some reason want to, as long as I can kind of zoom in or hear kind of how it goes, but I don't need to be there. I feel like I just would love to
for the public hearing.
I'd love to hear what people.
So then let's keep in mind though that because she does need to travel, that we don't build up the agenda too heavy on that day, so that we can be done by noon.
Yeah, would you too?
I've never driven.
It's like 4 hours.
It's only 4 hours.
That's not that. Oh, 3.5.
You're just trying to get there.
I just want to get there before dark because I don't want to get lost in case I do something stupid.
Don't go through Christmas Valley.
I always have so much confidence. Gas station. I was going like, oh, which way should I go? And I always pick the wrong one and have a new adventure.
Yeah. The Google Maps shows it not going through Klamath. Over in Highway 97, basically. You go through Christmas Valley. You go through Christmas Valley.
Go where? Go from here to where?
Christmas Valley.
Okay.
Cut across Christmas Valley, across the state, towards Christmas Valley, Silver Lake, and you go over to Highway 97 and drop down into Klamath Falls.
All right, I might do that
3
just for
hours.
safety.
3 hours and 48 minutes. That's not bad.
It's very close. I still live in Klamath. It's very close to go to Lakeview or Christmas Valley. But
yeah,
one
really
time
not
I
that
left.
much different.
One time I left Eugene, didn't have accurate stuff, and got which is some real hinterlands trying to get back to Burns. I'm like, Patty, don't do that.
So the Lakeview route shows 4 hours and 1 minute. The Christmas Valley is, like I said, 3 hours.
Well, then we should be able to have a normal county court meeting.
What's the first thing on the is there a gathering in the evening on that first night?
I don't think so. I think that's the District 2 meeting is the next morning, and that's I'm the delegate, and we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. So
the only thing you guys tabled that the wildfire thing. So CW they need to wait another.
I don't think that it's whether it's the 6th or the 20th that we dealt with that.
Okay.
I don't foresee that.
Do either of you remember when that was commissioned?
That was really a Suzanne
and is it already
thing.
paid for? Or?
I remember working that side, and we just kind of heard of that.
I think it was just a little.
To be honest,
I think it was just over a year ago. I do remember Irene being introduced, and that's the first time I remember seeing her and her introducing who she was.
Those are questions I can ask.
And then the whole year happened of all the work.
Who's that?
Irene. I can have her provide some.
I was just gonna get in touch with Melinda as well.
And she might have a little bit of a timeline too that she could find.
And just for general purpose, just general knowledge, I just kind of
agree.
Where it got paid through, you know. So general deliberation or general discussion, whatever. We did get in the signing of what is it, House Bill 3, one with all with the money, the funds are in it for the fairgrounds and everything. What bill?
I thought it was
30.
I thought it was 5506, but I have too many bills in my head.
Yeah, me too. I can't think. Anyway, it was signed, and we need to do a press release on it. But that still had the additional, I think. Is that the bill that had the additional 1.3 million for the fairgrounds in it?
Yeah, it had that, and then also for the kids club.
For the kids club, there's $3 million for our court. The way it's titled, it says Harney County Court Annex. There's $3 million there for that. Our $2.25 million for our infrastructure.
It was in that one. Okay, I thought maybe it was in a different one, so that's good to know.
There was
it
that,
was
and then there was
the last time, but I was still having
a challenge. I want to say it seems like there was. I think that's the same bill that had the money in it for the partnership too, wasn't it?
There
had
was
the
a
funds.
55 or a 5002, I believe, also that had some. I think had some of the money for the partnership because they got two different.
There two of them.
Yeah.
So actually, quite a bit for Harney County.
It's good to know.
Thanks. Thank you to the Representative Owens and Senator Finley and
them making those priorities are just enormous for this region. And I know Amy Dobson had actually contacted me, and I'll maybe ask her to get on our agenda, but she was just kind of throwing it out there a little bit, as they work on this next phase, they are going to have office space available. We've had, just a general conversation, previous to you, Judge Hart, but I think you aware of it, potentially OSU extension, taking up office space down there, and that's a larger conversation to be had. But, now that they are further along with that it's going to come to fruition, we probably need to think about that a little bit.
I like that organization of it, but the fiscal side of it is right now.
That's where we're going to
right now. It's an in-kind donation because they're housed within the courthouse. If we move them there, then we're going to be responsible for the rent.
Yeah, and so knowing what that would be and whether we're comfortable with it or not, a larger conversation, but one that could actually take place now that it's going to happen.
Trying to think. I'm working on the landfill annual financial assurance certification.
Well, you saw Susan sent you some great documents about it from years ago. Did you see her handwritten
Oh, yeah.
Christensen about when she used to work for DEQ.
Yeah. That was, for the time capsule, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't.
Do you know what I'm talking about? I'm gonna look it up.
I saw it too. It was for Diamond and Druzy, I think, wasn't it? And the measurements of their pits and tonnage and handwritten notes.
Oh, yeah, that is. Anyway, she found some old stuff on how they were splitting out the landfill. They had a little drawing of here, threw a line across a little
width and length and depth and whatnot.
So is there a specific timeline that
say report? See how complicated this stuff is?
Well,
to me that looks sufficient.
I don't know. It's an annual requirement from years past. I believe it's a few months late right now, but I hadn't received any notification from Oregon DEQ saying that
they're upset.
Yeah. But at the same time, in trying to decipher how that needed to be done, I reached out to them and they indicated that we may have been missing some information in that process in years past. So I'm trying to decipher. Again, I think maybe that individual might be on vacation because I've reached out and hadn't heard back. He gave me a link with some information and a checklist that I can't get to open. So I'm in the process of working on that. And then what else? I'm still working on the brownfields assessment grant. I'm getting us squared away on that. And I think I'd mentioned to you both somewhere along the line that we're going to just contract with Oregon DEQ because they have a list of contractors that can do the work, and it'll just streamline and be a lot easier. So that project, and I don't know. There's probably 100 other things that occupy my time every day, but I can't lose it when I come to think of it.
Okay, that's the high level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're doing on this. It's a lot of balls to speak to.
Yeah.
We got a couple things, not much. We had the first broadband action team meeting yesterday by Zoom. It was good. The rapid design study is underway. And I'm not yet done this. Figure out a web page for the county to have for that work and have
could it just be one of the tabs in our firm? Like they create just a
I'll ask Cindy what.
We could probably put it under like committees or boards or something like that under that tab.
Right.
I think we should have.
And we
feels like that
we'll be providing a link to each and every meeting. Play it and watch it if they want. If they're interested, they're not technically onto that. Let's see. Judge, amongst all the balls you're juggling. So it looks like we are all been invited for a work session around the biomass stuff. And I just wondered if there's any pre-reads that at some point you could forward us so we can become familiar with whatever documents they might want to talk about.
Did she send something more on there? I don't.
So there is a tab, just backtrack just a second. There is a tab of whatever here for boards and committees.
Yeah, that would be fine. Yeah. And again, just to have for transparency for people who are interested, you could post any relevant document slides or any other, there's a lot of, it was great to have paid staff to put on a nice Zoom meeting. I gotta tell you that. Yeah, I don't know if they'll provide any documents ahead of time, but I'll be getting that biomass stuff. I mean, except for the orientation desk side brief a year or two ago by Andrea Latham, which was good, but I'd still like to have whether there's any draft bylaws or formation documents. Never really been privy to any of that.
Not seeing anything on the invite specifically that got attached. So,
okay. I just FYI, there were two state boards that I served on for more than one term, and those are ending, and I've not reapplied. And one was the Construction Contractors Board, one was the Workforce and Talent Development Board. It used to be called the Workforce Investment Board, but they changed it some years back. And so I've dropped off of those now. So I'll be available to do more local stuff. Wonderful, right?
For other boards.
And then did you ever hear back on how the unpermitted construction out near 00, that gentleman Mr. Bradley came in to ask that something be done? What's the status?
So I referred it to the Planning Community Development Planning Department, and they went out, served the people there with a stop order, and then they had a meeting and devised or derived a couple of different ways for them to come into compliance.
Oh, good.
That's the last I've heard on it. So they're in communication with the builder, property owner and builder.
Good. That's all I have. Doug Hart came, and I believe you were on Zoom for the Sage Grouse public meeting that was held during the Interact meeting. I was up to some point and then go. Okay. There is still some conversation about having another meeting down on the south end. We're still trying to kind of contact property owners down there to see how many of them would like us to provide an additional meeting. And so I'll keep you posted if something does happen that way. We're also looking at trying to, the last week in August, try to put together a Wolf Committee meeting. We're still trying to nail down availability of some OW Fish and Wildlife Department staff that we want to have come and do some presenting. And so once I get that nailed down, I'll let you know as well. We've really been wanting to try to have something, but this summer has been pretty hectic. There is a wolf that has been in the area, the landowner's been contacted, and so potentially some of these mitigation dollars can, help some of those type of individuals that are seeing interactions with some of these animals passing through. And this is the second time this particular collared animal is passing through. And so we're starting to see a little bit of a pattern there. And so we're hoping to maybe be able to discuss that in that meeting of some options that we could help with for trying to protect livestock in that particular area where that's the second pass through. We're seeing from this original dispersal from a pack up by the Grand.
Has there been any recorded depredation from that animal?
Not as yet. But it's in a sheep allotment, so that's always a really big concern because they do tend to really like sheep because of the ease of that species. Still working on trying to get that. I have some that I've heard rumor of. Some of our committee members are potentially leaving the area, and so I'm working on contacting them and trying to make sure that if folks are not going to be with us, that we are able to replace those positions. And so I'll keep you posted on that as that conversation moves forward, but just so you're aware, we might have some changes needed on that committee in the near future.
That's all done.
Yeah. This one here.
Thank you.
Oh, no, this isn't important. I just
is that anything that the Emirates talks about or at all?
So where Dad gets back.
Well, it's in the Vail district. Obviously, people individually are commenting on it, but nothing specific for the county. I think the lithium exploration piece is one of those. I personally am opposed to the lithium exploration, but we as a county court really haven't discussed it. I was sitting by a Burns pipe type person that Harney District Hospital appreciation barbecue, and they were talking about all that stuff a lot.
I just think that with any of our quote unquote, renewable energies and all that, that lithium is kind of got a lot of false pretenses in my view of, the amount of
everyone's the land for
work that goes into
high-tech
removing such a small amount of material.
People deep state uses. I'm sorry, here I go.
Yeah, so that's where I'm like,
come on.
I feel that
So,
if the court was, wanting to put in a comment, I'm not opposed to that, but it's not something we necessarily discussed previous.
So your perception on it then is that it's minimal in what they're getting out of versus the disturbance that it creates?
Versus the disturbance and additional resources that go into it. And, when you really weigh out the costs, what costed more to extract this for this other benefit, but then, you're replacing something that costs less, prior to the lithium battery becoming this big catch-all for all things green. And so, I know it is in our neighborhood that it's being proposed, when we're a large land mass. It may not seem like it to some folks, but it really is near us in, the bigger scope, but it's not within our county boundaries.
Our South End folks, probably have some views.
You're referring to the site in Mount Here County?
Correct. And I haven't actually talked to the Mount Here court to see what their discussions have been. I don't know if any of you have asked them.
I haven't. I've tried to get in touch with Judge Joyce this past week and wasn't in on another topic, but I'll add that to when I do talk to him to see what they're.
It'd be interesting to see, if they have some reasoning for support or not supporting it, or if they're staying neutral on that, or
yeah.
I have seen quite a bit on different tribes, and a lot of them kind of getting organized in their opposition to it.
So I hadn't heard much tribal opposition to this site in Mount Here County. The one south of there in Nevada, the Thacker Pass.
Yes,
that one's.
I guess I was assuming that they were opposing both, but maybe they're only opposing the one.
Yeah, I hadn't heard. I had myself.
The fact that the conversation I had with some local they brought it up because Commissioner, you guys are opposing this type thing, and they were specifically talking about the lithium mining on that particular conversation, and I said
they don't bring up the bail.
No, I mean it wasn't an official conversation, but
well, in Mount Here County, is Thacker the Mount Here County, or is that the one?
No, the Thacker Pass one is in Nevada.
Yeah,
and then the site that's just west of McDermott in
Mount Here.
In Mount Here, yeah, that's a different one.
I had just let them know. I said, if you all would like to officially bring this to our attention and your view on it, please get on the agenda for county court. We always love to hear from you if you want to educate us on that. I can left it at that, but I just didn't know if the NRAC, you guys talk about that type of stuff or not too much.
We tend to stick to what's within our district boundaries. It has been mentioned, but it's not something our district manager would be making a call on. And then just so the court's aware, on the 29th, I believe 9 o'clock, is the Blues Intergovernmental Council. Originally, we were going to go to 1 o'clock, but it looks like we might end at noon because the Division 512 rulemaking process now begins at 12:30.
Oh, it does?
1 o'clock.
Oh.
So has two invitations from them, and one says 12:30. So there's from 9 to noon, a Blues Intergovernmental Council that'll take place here locally, and then a Division 512 RAC meeting will be from 12:30 to 5.
Just for me.
Tough day.
So just for reference, the Thacker Pass mine site is Highway 95, Orvada, which is south of McDermott.
Yeah.
And then northwest of there in Nevada. And the other development
where the
approximately it's right in here.
I knew they were kind of in a similar proximity, and I don't know if folks kind of don't realize that there's two separate proposals, because Thacker's kind of gotten a lot of the limelight.
Actually,
but the other one
actually you can see
should be
kind of a depression right there. That kind of a caldera, whatever depression right there. That's where the Oregon one is.
Oh, okay.
And it's got that ridge line that kind of shelters it.
Yeah, like say that's a caldera right there. So.
Yeah, it's right in the bottom of that. So it's almost directly due west of McDermott.
Interesting.
So they're in line with each other. If there's a deposit, it's probably
all within the same complex.
Same range.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything else.
Did you want to look at calendars? I know we're all really busy the next few weeks, but potentially to finish going around to some of our properties and sites, county places such as community corrections, housing, the weed department when he's there and open, just eyeball that. Maybe just look downstairs.
Yeah, they're extremely busy. They have taken on the weed department. We may not catch up with him until the season's over with.
Okay, that's fine. I'd like us to drop in on the rock recycling, whether they're open or closed sometime. I'd like to take pictures of your facial expressions when you look at it.
I'm looking at it.
Although you're both very good at being stoic.
Was there
under
any
pressure.
further conversation with them regarding the door and the insurance for the party that ruined the door?
When I dropped by and saw that the door was up and that I could just walk in, nobody was there, their office doors weren't locked, I could just take whatever I want, stuff was still playing. Then the next time I came by a couple weeks later, you couldn't get in that door because all kinds of lumber had been dropped all over the place. So it needs our eyes on, guys. That's been a couple weeks, who knows, but it was almost like, did someone decide just to drop this stuff thinking that'll solve people coming in the door? But it's not good.
So I'm going to update kind of the same neighborhood right there as an update. The Outlaw Wood Products is our tenant in the other building, has been paid all the back rent, is in compliance, insurance coverage and everything.
Good.
So they're all back up good standing.
Good. That was my only concern, is that
our other
they need to
our other tenant in the Kearney, in the Kearney building, South Kearney building.
Oh, yeah. That was such a mess.
429 South Kearney.
I haven't driven that far into town yet to see.
Oh, you haven't?
Not since last week.
It is gross.
Yeah. So little background. Earlier this year was March. We sent a letter.
Hasn't served us.
March, we sent a letter to the occupant, advising that we're going to exercise our right to terminate the lease. And over the next few months, communicating with the individual, with the occupant, on what his plans were and how long it take him to vacate. And I was continually getting, next week.
It's all out on the street.
Yeah. Well, this was before it went on the street even. And then I got a little more persistent with it, and that's when everything started showing up on the street. How long are you going to be? How long? Oh, this weekend. So I got to the point where I'm like, this is not working. So I proceeded to forcible eviction and detainer process through county council and had a hearing in justice court. Individual was given until 11:59 p.m. on the 14th, Monday night, to be out. Yesterday, I was so swamped with stuff. I needed to consult with the county council and say, okay, so that's expired. There is, and I went by Monday morning or Tuesday morning. I went by Tuesday morning, took some pictures, walked around the building and everything, and looked. There's some debris left, really, for the most part. Stuff that just ends up being thrown away. But I need to find out with county council what our next step in the process is to fully regain control of the property. So that's in the works.
Well, and I'm thinking the city of Burns might need to create an ordinance that a yard sale cannot take place for more than a couple of days versus here just 24/7.
After the hearing, after the forcible eviction detainer hearing, the occupant went down and talked to the treasurer about how much his back rent was. That's $3,100 or so, something like that. I don't remember the exact amount. And that he's going to make arrangements to try and pay that back rent. So hopefully we will get
compensated for when they were occupying the building.
Yeah. And then from this point forward, then we'll figure out what we need to do or what we're going to do with the property.
Yeah, it'll be put up for sale or whatever.
Yeah. I think we're probably going to have a little bit of cleanup left to do before that, but so just to bring you up on where that's at.
I did have a call the other day about that. A lady called to make a complaint about it, and I told her that it was being handled. So.
Well, at this point, if they get everything off of our piece and it's all over there on the house, it's out of our. It's not our.
Yeah, then it's the city of.
Then it's on the city
jurisdiction to deal with. So that they do, need to figure out a game plan there.
Yeah. We dealt with our portion of it. He relocated everything to his property.
Then we can file a complaint against our neighbor. I'm not kidding.
Just to share, tomorrow is our first land sale. Too. We have the auction out here.
A sheriff's auction.
What time? 1:30, I believe. I don't think I have that on the website. I need to get that on the website.
I've never gone to one. I give their low fee, right?
Yeah.
Pretty low fee.
I did a couple of them when I worked at the sheriff's office years ago. It's pretty, yeah. I'm no auctioneer, but it's pretty.
They've done it while we were in meetings before. It's like too exciting. Okay.
Anything else?
No, I'm ready to adjourn.
Okay. All right. I don't know, Tammy asked me this last time, and I don't know if we need to do this. I see this at other meetings or whatnot, but have you guys in the past entertained a motion to adjourn, or do we just adjourn?
We usually just adjourn.
I mean, I think the Robert's Rules of Decorum are there for just kind of a guide, but I don't think there's any specific.
You can be a stickler to whatever.
I'm happy.
Paul Andrus was here.
All right. So Harney County Court will stand adjourned then at 1:23 p.m.
And I know you guys have other things to do, but
I'm going to go through the rest of this.
At 2:30, Justin Chase from My Way, he's the guy that works on Boise's